Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show and happy Monday. Have you gotten all your Christmas shopping done yet? I have not. And it is a stressor. As your kids get older, you don't even really know what to buy. It was so much easier when they were younger. Anyway, God bless everyone. And I hope it's going better for you than it is for me. If you have great ideas for a 15, 13, and 11-year-old, I would love to hear them. You can email me, Megyn@megynkelly.com. And before the week is through, I'll offer you some of the ideas I have come up with. Maybe we can share and contrast. In any event, today we start with this delicious news. I mean, you never see these media organizations held to account for their vile lies they tell about Donald Trump. I mean, it's rare to see it happen at all. And trust me, as a media figure, I'm not clamoring to see media figures get sued for defamation for, mild sins or even moderate sins. But this was just so egregious. And they did it over and over and over again at ABC News. They didn't care. They clearly enjoyed saying what George Stephanopoulos said. It made them feel good about themselves. This is George Stephanopoulos', I'll just leave the dirty teen joke there. That's how he feels about saying nasty things about Trump. And finally, it came back to bite him. I would love to see what's in his text messages to his producers because I guarantee it just cost ABC News $15 million. That's almost certainly what happened. So you may have heard this over the weekend. Trump sued ABC News and ABC News caved. They collapsed. They gave in like that and quickly settled the case with President-elect Donald Trump after the network's top star, George Stephanopoulos, had been ruled by the judge to be required to sit for a deposition. He fought it. He didn't want to have to do it. And the judge late last week said, well, you have to. You said a bunch of dumb shit. You've been sued for defamation. I've refused to get rid of this case thus far. And you must sit like any other defendant, you privileged whatever. You must sit for a deposition and answer questions from Trump's lawyer. Trump earlier in the case had said, I'll sit for deposition, but not right now because I'm running for president, so I'm kind of busy. And the judge gave him a delay, but the judge also looked at Trump and said, you must sit too. You got a little time on your hands. I'm aware of your job. So Trump was going to have to sit too. But Trump, we know, is willing. Trump sat when he was getting sued by E. Jean Carroll. Remember, that's that famous exchange with her lawyer. He's like, you, for example, would never be my type. When she said, did you say you can grab women by the you-know-what and they'll let you do it and you're in a star? And he said, well, for thousands of years, that's been true. Unfortunately, or fortunately, that was Trump sitting for a deposition in a civil lawsuit that was against him. So he will do it, but George Stephanopoulos would not. He got the order that he would have to testify under oath, and they caved. They collapsed. They gave in and cried uncle. It's sad because I would have loved to have read that deposition transcript. You guys are probably familiar with the absolutely disgusting interview that led to all of this with George Stephanopoulos. We did a big episode on this because he had on Congresswoman Nancy Mace back in the spring. And remember, he was disgusted that this rape victim could back someone who he kept claiming had been found liable for rape. That was the defamatory statement over and over and over. And we pointed out that that was false. And I believe we even suggested that Trump should sue him, that was completely inaccurate, wrong, and it was liable. And we focused on the fact that he thought it would be super fun and really make him look good to go after a rape survivor, Nancy Mace, and really twist her facts and her words in her face. Like, if you were raped, how could you support a rapist? You claim you're a rape victim. How could a rape victim support a rape? Great positioning. You're idiots. Stephanopoulos is an idiot, and so are his producers, because Let me tell you, in all my years at Fox, never mind my short stint in NBC, the producers have a couple of main jobs. One is to arm the anchor with facts. Fail. Okay, fail there. And two is to protect the anchor. You protect the anchor. And so if the anchor is out there saying something colossally stupid, usually if you have a great producer, they'll get in your ear to say, no, it's this. No, it's that. Be careful. That happens with me all the time on this show. My producers, the ones who run herd on various segments that I'm doing, if they realize I've said something inaccurate or that I'm searching for a fact, are constantly in my ears. That's why I wear these headphones to say, it's this or it's that. This whole thing that you're watching and listening to is a team effort. And 10 times that, 100 times that on ABC broadcast news and a Sunday show like the one George Stephanopoulos sits for. Partisan hack. He's been there a long time. It doesn't make him any more respectable. He's a partisan hack. He started off as a partisan hack and he remains one. He's just too ballless to own his partisan nature, wants us to believe that he's straight and narrow now, notwithstanding all those years helping Bill Clinton. And the irony of him going after a rape supporter in that way. How could you support a rape supporter? My God, the nerve to support a rape committer after his years running the war room, tearing down Bill Clinton's sexual assault accusers. I mean, it's just rich. So now the whole thing has cost him his reputation and his company $15 million. Okay, we're going to get into all of this. There's more on the media front, not only with him, but also here. Do you remember the story we brought to you on Friday with Hugh Hewitt, in which we questioned CNN's Clarissa Ward's report about allegedly stumbling into this dramatic rescue of a Syrian war prisoner? He's there under the blanket and there's no bucket for waste that we can see. And he's as clean as I am sitting on this set, even though he says he's been behind bars for 3 months and 4 days without food or water. And he's not blinded when he sees the sun, and he like all sorts of weird things. Well, there's an update. Joining me now today for the full show, the EJ's Emily Jashinsky, DC correspondent for Unheard and host of Undercurrents, and Eliana Johnson, editor-in-chief of the Washington Free Beacon and co-host of the podcast Ink-Stained Wretches. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. For those of us who have been holding our breath for the past several months, we can finally exhale in the wake of this presidential election, right? Work can finally be done on the major issues that this country's facing, and one of the most significant is our national debt. Look, the fact is our nation's broke, and that debt is a house of cards that cannot be quickly dismantled by anyone. So the strategy remains the same when it comes to your investments. You might want to diversify your savings. Virtually all the experts say that's a good idea. This is why I want to tell you about Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control and out of our president's control that it really can be important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you if you would like to convert all or part of an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, which is like a hedging of the bets. And the best news is it does not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. You just text MK to 989898. You get your free info kit. And plus right now you will receive a free 1 ounce Silver Eagle for every $5,000 purchased Silver Eagle coin. Protect your savings with Birch Gold. Text MK to 989898 and claim your eligibility for free silver today. Ladies, welcome back. Are you enjoying the ABC meltdown and collapse as much as the surrender in this case as much as I am? I'll start with you, Emily.
Well, I'm also enjoying really ABC's peers in media freaking out because of the ABC settlement. I mean, that's been, I think, equally as delicious as watching so many people now criticize ABC for quote unquote caving. And, you know, what was a pretty serious case? I mean, that it's just in the last 24 hours that so many different people in media are now accusing ABC basically of enabling Trump when they were staring down the barrel of a very, very problematic deposition, being in litigation with an incoming president, and all of that would entail for the incoming administration, their coverage of the incoming administration. I mean, like you said, I'm not cheering on like lowering the threshold for defamation for journalists. And I don't necessarily think this lowers the threshold. I think it really was a very, very serious case. So all kinds of schadenfreude to be enjoyed this morning.
You know, the thing that got them in trouble, Eliana, was he went out there, repeatedly said that a jury had found him liable for rape, which is not what happened. A jury found Trump liable for sexual abuse, and they said no on the rape charge. Then the judge wrote up his interpretation of what happened. Obviously, this judge was not a Trump fan. And the judge, Lewis Kaplan, wrote as follows after the fact when Trump was seeking a new trial. The judge wrote, "The finding that Miss Carroll failed to prove that she was raped within the meaning of New York penal law does not mean that she failed to prove that Mr. Trump raped her, as many people commonly understand the word rape." Okay, nobody even understands what that means other than this judge wanted someone to see the word rape and Trump's name in a headline. But the fact remains, the jury's verdict is the jury's verdict, and no judge can change it with words after the fact or their post-verdict interpretation. The judge can throw it out. The judge can lower the charge, potentially by throwing a charge out, but he can't increase the charge from sexual abuse to rape. It's not a possibility, neither this judge nor any other. And the bottom line is Trump was not found liable for rape by this jury. And despite that fact, George Stephanopoulos went out on the air in that interview and sounded like this. Sought to.
And you've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and two separate juries have found him liable for rape. Donald Trump has been found liable for rape by a jury. I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape. Someone who's been found liable for rape, you have to answer the question. Why are you supporting someone who's been found liable for rape? They are afraid to come forward, as you said, because they are defamed by those who commit the rape. You don't find it offensive that Donald Trump has been found liable for rape. Well, actually, what you're doing is defending a man who's been found liable for rape. I don't understand how you can do that. Right. The judge affirmed that it was, in fact, rape. Donald Trump was found to have committed rape. That's just a fact.
And that's why he's now having to pay $15 million, or his news organization is, Eliana. So what do you make of it?
This is astonishing for a number of reasons, a couple of which we haven't touched on yet. But I really can't recall a case in which a major national news organization had to pay a sum like this to a celebrity or politician in the U.S. And that's particularly because the protections for news organizations are so high. So you can't be sued just for saying something untrue, can't be sued for libel or defamation for saying something untrue. Trump would have had to show that George Stephanopoulos did so with actual malice. That's the standard, and it's a very high standard. But this case never went that far, and I think that's the question: is ABC actually might have had a strong case? Because it is so hard to win these lawsuits. And the question is, why did they settle? Why did they settle, and why did they settle now? Was it that they didn't want to be involved in litigation with the sitting president of the United States? Or was it that they knew very embarrassing and unflattering things would come out in the discovery process, or that Stephanopoulos would be forced to make embarrassing admissions in a deposition? We don't know, but to me, there are some serious unanswered questions about why the settlement was made and around the timing of it that lead to speculation around those things. I have to assume that it was one of those things, and that paying $15 million now was less painful for them than going through a potentially humiliating or embarrassing discovery process.
But you know what they also skipped was the motion for summary judgment phase, because that's filed after you get depositions from each side. What normally would happen is they take Stephanopoulos' deposition, they take Trump's deposition and whoever else's that they wanted, and then you get all your deposition transcripts ready and you file, as the defendant, a motion for summary judgment, meaning give me a win here, judge, and dismiss this defamation claim against ABC without a trial. Because here, you can see right here that everyone admits The judge said this. But the problem is that they didn't do that. So they wanted to get out of this before they even had that serious shot at getting it dismissed altogether by the judge. Which tells me they didn't want him sitting for deposition. That's why they paid the $15 million. That plus they were probably, yes, a bit on bended knee because they're afraid of Trump, not so much in his capacity as a plaintiff, but in his capacity as the president-elect. And they need him. ABC News needs to have a relationship with him. And this is no way to do it. Just to continue to lie about him, to maintain that your lies were justified. You were allowed to tell them, notwithstanding the fact that it is indisputable he was not found liable by a jury for rape, as Stephanopoulos said over and over, Emily.
He said, you rolled the clip of him saying, that's just a fact. And it's sort of the problem with people like George Stephanopoulos and crystallized in one perfect example. That's just a fact about something that's absolutely not a fact. In fact, it was found the opposite. Like literally the jury answered no. And it's also interesting. I mean, we haven't even touched on the rank misogyny in that interview, which is just maddening to watch. He's telling Nancy Mace exactly how she should feel about this as a woman, as somebody who's survived sexual abuse. But Trump was, I believe, in this judgment, found liable of something much lower than rape, which was sexual abuse, which George Stephanopoulos could have used that. There's something very particular about wanting to accuse Trump of being held liable of rape that they knew better. I mean, they wanted to use this Aaron Blake Washington Post story they put up on the screen. If people were watching this and saw the ABC clip, they used this Aaron Blake Washington Post story about what Judge Kaplan, who was trying to like hedge and show there was wiggle room on, how people understand rape being different than the legal standard of rape. It was just ridiculous for a judge to be involved in. But they wanted that Washington Post story to give them license to say that it's just a fact when the jury said something completely different. And it didn't, it doesn't hold, it does not hold any weight or credibility. It's just a ridiculous claim. So it didn't work out for them,
Emily,
clearly.
If George Stephanopoulos had said, the judge found that the finding Miss Carroll failed to prove that she was raped within the meaning of the New York penal law does not mean she failed to prove that Mr. Trump raped her. If they want to say that, which I grant you is far less catchy, they would have been fine. Yeah. I mean, that's the problem. They were trying to take this judge, trying to throw E.G. and Carroll a bone, but the judge knew that the judge could not declare Trump a rapist. So it's just kind of like, well, the finding that she didn't prove she was raped doesn't mean she failed to prove he raped her, as many people commonly understand the word rape. Like, all of this is so fucked up that the judge was doing this at all. Like, what are you talking about? The common understanding of the word rape. There is a statutory definition of the word rape. It was provided to the jury, and they checked no when they were asked to decide whether Trump had done that. They check, like, this is an egregious statement by the judge anyway. But let me tell you, as somebody who does this all the time, talks about legal rulings and things that are dicey about people, we bend over backwards to make sure we track the exact language, because if you don't, that's how you get in trouble. We're not perfect either. But if we screw it up, we'll come back on and correct it. We'll come back the next day and say, okay, here's what we meant to say. They never did that. I don't know whether Stephanopoulos had 10 producers in his ear saying over and over, not rape, not rape. I think they didn't say that. I think they did not do him a solid because they popped up that article that you just pointed out from the Washington Post as like his proof. You see? And so the segment was long. It was like 15 minutes long. That thing pops up and he's like, there, I have it right there, because the Washington Post wrote this. And I guarantee you that's his team trying to help him out. Like, yeah, it's rape. It's rape. And what you really needed was a damn lawyer to say, or someone who knows how to read a legal opinion to say, that doesn't excuse his statements over and over that a jury found him liable for rape. It's not true. But the thing is, Eliana, I guarantee you the whole crew was so gleeful about attaching this word to the vile Trump, they couldn't help themselves.
I'm actually not sure if in their own mind they even distinguish between sexual assault and rape, and that they themselves may be so convinced that Trump is guilty that they elided the two things. We just don't know what happened behind the scenes, but it's perfectly plausible to me that they dislike, their visceral dislike of Trump goes so far that that they weren't all that familiar with the distinctions that the jury made, frankly.
You have to prove when you're suing, when you are a public figure, claiming that you have been defamed, as Trump was claiming. And by the way, to the point you raised initially, when that happens, as a public figure, people have the highest ability to say bad things about you. The First Amendment protects speech, and it really protects speech about public figures. And it really protects speech about political public figures or political acts taken by public figures. It's a political person in the public sphere that has the most protection you can get under the law. So that's why the media generally gets away with saying false things about politicians as long as it doesn't reach this extremely high standard. And that high standard is it has to be malice. And what is said with malice? And what does that mean? It means with knowledge that it's false, like I'm knowingly lying about you. I know you weren't found liable for rape, and I'm saying it anyway. Or the more frequent standard is the reckless disregard for its falsity. So you don't care. So this is a scenario where this is what got Fox in trouble with Dominion, where Dominion's sending in letter after letter saying, this isn't true. There's no evidence for it being true. Here's this that proves it's not true and that proves it's not true. And all you have on the other side and saying it's true is like the unsupported declarations of Sidney Powell. That's how you get to reckless disregard of whether in fact it's true. So it has to be like really, it can't just be like, I didn't do my homework. That's negligent. That's not reckless. Okay. So the standard is very high. And this is why I think that there were texts and there would be instant messaging between George and the team. All of that. That's all what the anchors use. And I used it many times too at Fox and at NBC, where you're corresponding with Stephanopoulos guaranteed was corresponding with his producers during that whole segment. And I guarantee you that those communications don't reflect well on anybody and anyone involved. And it could possibly be the team maybe saying it's sexual abuse. Right. It's sexual abuse. And George refusing to acknowledge that. And then perhaps the team finally just realized they weren't going to bend him and threw up that Washington Post article. But whatever it is, it didn't look good for him, Eliana. I think we can agree on that.
Right. It's a really bad look. And I would add to this, it sets a scary precedent for two other libel suits that are underway, one against CNN and one against NBC, that are far stronger cases and have progressed much further than ABC News let this one progress. The one against CNN is about an incident that occurred on Jake Tapper's show, where a former military veteran who was, or a military veteran who was working to extract Afghans out of Afghanistan during the collapse of the government there, CNN insinuated that he was engaged in fraud. And at MSNBC, where they called a doctor working in immigrant detention facilities a uterus collector, arguing that he was performing hysterectomies unnecessarily. And those suits, Jake Tapper's deposition was taken, and dirt came out in that. So this has to be sending a chill, not just through ABC, but like CNN and MSNBC cannot be feeling good today.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned, Emily, that I think you were the one, I can't forget whether it was you or Eliana, I think it was you, talking about the disgusting nature of the interview to begin with, right? There was not a good look for George Stephanopoulos from the start, as I mentioned in my intro, going after a rape survivor. She was only 16 when she was raped, Nancy Mace. And obviously, any thoughtful person would say, that is not the soft spot I want to exploit for purposes of looking tough on my show. I mean, think of the level of douchebaggery in order to think that'll be a fun one to really hit her with over and over. And then even in the line in the clip we showed, you have to answer. Fuck off. I am here as a courtesy to you. I don't have to do anything. You don't like my answers? Don't invite me back. I don't have to do what you tell me. All of it is so... He's such a bully. And all the statements and the approach are evidence of what an arrogant prick bully he is. How he treated her, how he spoke about Trump, how he came after her with his demands to do it the way he insisted. And here is a little bit just to remind the audience of that dynamic as he aggressively went after Nancy Mace and sought one.
How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
It's a shame that you will never feel, George.
I'm not trying to shame
you.
You
are.
at all. I'm just asking.
And I find it offensive, and this is why women won't come forward.
Women won't come forward because they're defamed by those who perpetrate rape.
Today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
And I answered it. You're shaming me for my political choices.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape.
Just it was not a question.
I'm questioning your political choices because you're supporting
me. You're
someone who's been found liable for rape.
Exactly.
You're not answering the question.
And I think it's disgusting.
Well, you're welcome to say that, but you also have to answer the question. What you're doing is defending a man who's been found liable for rape.
Okay, by the way, let's just show them the jury form, okay? Oh, you heard it over and over. Been found liable for rape, who a jury found liable for rape. Here's the jury verdict form. Oh, I can't read that. But I remember that it says, did he commit rape? And you can see we highlighted here. It says no. And then they say, did he commit sexual assault? And it says yes. But look at that. I mean, it's clear as day. This is what the jury found, and Stephanopoulos would not adhere to it. Emily, so yeah, speak to the dynamic of the overall exchange.
Well, yeah, I mean, so he is, you can tell, like a dog with a bone. He will not let this question go. It's one thing to just ask Nancy Mace the question, although it's, to your point, Megyn, laughable that George Stephanopoulos, who very famously defended Bill Clinton in some very scummy ways for many, many years, thought that he was the guy who should put this question to Nancy Mace, that him as a man, he should be rhetorically beating down on Nancy Mace over and over and over again with the moral credibility of a journalist to just make sure that she has her feet held to the fire on this question. I mean, that is laughable. Nancy Mace did a really good job of saying that you're shaming me. She performed fantastically in that. And just to the point about the jury sheet right there, it's so important because he is saying this is a fact. And as we were talking about, maybe there's this like left-wing feminist opinion that the judge is getting to in that like op-ed that the judge wrote so inappropriately that says we can broaden the definition of rape to include all of these different things. That is actually something feminists have tried to do despicably for a very long time. So you can maybe make that argument, but you can't say that it's a fact. And so while he is trying to push Nancy Mace further and further, like a dog with a bone, on this really disgusting line of questioning, truly shaming her, as she said rightfully, he doesn't have the moral credibility, nor does he have the journalistic credibility. It is a total farce. It is the problems with journalism in one perfect segment.
Exactly right. And then, so that happened in March of 2024, that segment. And by the way, just in case people have forgotten, Bill Clinton was accused multiple times by multiple women of sexual abuse, assault, and rape. And who defended him? George Stephanopoulos at every turn.
And with much more credibility than E. Jean Carroll.
Far more. George Stephanopoulos created a whole war room to defend Bill Clinton again. So for him to sit there and look at Nancy Mace and say, how could you support a rape defendant, a rapist, someone found liable for rape? How could you support somebody like that? The only thing missing from Nancy Mace's great response was, how could you, George Stephanopoulos? You ran a whole war room trying to tear down those. Don't lecture me on what's going to stop rape victims from coming forward. But what's going to stop them is people like you and your buddies for Bill Clinton, who insulted them, called them trailer trash, and unleashed the greatest legal teams in the country against these poor women who had absolutely no means to fight for their dignity and to protect themselves and from other women's against your predator boss. Okay? So just stop. Anyway, George Stephanopoulos was not called out that way. He's been called out by people like us, but This is the first time he's really had to own up for his terrible behavior. In one of the many ways it was terrible. 2 months after he was with Mace in March of 2024, he goes on Colbert, which is on a rival network, CBS, and look at this.
Now,
okay, so what's so galling about that, Eliana, is, as you well know, when you're involved in litigation, you know, like if I get involved in litigation, I would never make a comment out about it publicly because it's stupid. It's estupido. You don't do it because it can come back to haunt you. And it was absolutely foolish for him to go. But you know why he did? He knows that. For sure, the ABC lawyers told him not. He had swagger around this. He was like, I know I'm only 4'2", but I'm going to take down the president. F you, big man. I'm George Stephanopoulos. He's got the Napoleon complex, and he felt the need to try to act like a tough guy.
Well, that's where the malice comes in, where not only have you been apprised that you made a factual error that impugns somebody's character by saying a falsehood about them on national television, you then go and repeat it and dig your heels in once again on national television. And so that, I think, is actually pretty good grounds for showing malice, where you say, not only did I do it the first time, but I was right. I was right. No apologies. Because the pretty easy way to get out of these things is to do what ABC News has now done, where you put a correction up and say, we regret the error. But that is not the attitude that George Stephanopoulos took in the Stephen Colbert interview after the litigation had been filed.
They could have avoided this whole thing if the very next week on his show, he went out and said, I would like to apologize to President Trump.
Totally.
He stated the following things. Those things were not true. This is what I should have said. That's it. That shows a potential jury or judge you didn't have actual malice in your heart. You did your best to correct the record. It doesn't necessarily totally exonerate you, but as a practical matter, it does. And instead, you had him out there, again, little Napoleon, trying to show how tough he was because, you know, he obviously had something to prove. Oh, and by the way, so he made their comments in March. In May, he goes on Colbert. In July, ABC News's motion to dismiss this case was denied. They tried to get it dismissed on the papers, and the judge said no. They have stated a claim. This can be seen through to discovery. So that was July. Hello, folks. We're knocking on the door of Christmas and Hanukkah right now. So we're in December. So if once they lost the motion to dismiss, they easily could have settled it then. You know, we know what comes next. Discovery. We got to turn over our texts, our documents. We are definitely going to have to give George over. They knew that. Producers on the show are going to have to give an over for deposition. Then we're going to have motion practice and possibly a trial. So they didn't even let it get, they let it go through. I assume they had discovery where papers were exchanged. They would have had to in order to have George's deposition ordered. You can't take somebody's deposition without having seen any of the papers or the texts or anything behind it. And that I assume that happened. And now he was about to have to sit. I really think something about George sitting was what made them fold, because it's not unprecedented for talent to have to sit. You know, we saw it at Fox News that the Murdoch sat. In the Fox News Dominion case, Rupert Murdoch sat. Not all the talent sat, but talent have sat in these lawsuits. Jake Tapper, you point out, he sat. But yep. George Stephanopoulos would not sit. And there's a reason for that, my friend. Meantime, Emily, here is a taste of the media meltdown around this as they're getting the vapors over any sort of white flag being waved at Donald Trump, SOT 24.
But it seems to me that there's a lot of this bending the knee going on. I mean, to me, it seems this is a time for our industry to stand firm, because Trump is not going to change his ways when he gets back in the Oval Office. He's going to continue to say things that need to be fact-checked. And you can't have the news industry worrying about this sort of stuff when they're just simply doing their jobs.
Well, if some bend the knee, others have to stand up straighter. You know, the former Time magazine editor Richard Stengel said this morning, Trump has sued dozens of publications and media outlets in the past, trying to, quote, intimidate the press into self-censorship, not to actually win any particular case. He did win in this case with a big payment, but that broader concern about self-censorship is one that I know many viewers and readers are worried about. And ultimately, that's Jim, right. As you know, we work for them. We work for the viewers.
Okay, first of all, if George Stephanopoulos bent the knee, we'd be looking at a Lilliputian. I'm like, where'd George go? What happened to You have to stand up straighter. Even straighter. Get straighter. We have to go super tall. Emily, now that ABC News is caved, the rest of us have to be even mightier to stand up against the giant. No acknowledgement. They did the wrong thing. Why don't they just get a lawyer before they have these discussions to advise them?
Well, here's what's infuriating is like these are the defenders of capital T truth, right? I mean, first of all, does Jim Acosta not realize that his network settled with Nicholas Sandmann in another very, very serious defamation case? So I guess they bent the knee in that one. So maybe his moral credibility is also in question. But secondly, these are the guardians of capital T truth. CNN ran those famous ads during the Trump administration about how they'll tell you something is an apple or a banana when Trump is telling you it's an apple. They'll tell you, no, it's actually a banana. Like they are so sanctimonious, and yet they are the ones in this case who are defending George Stephanopoulos for doing actually a really shitty thing, which is telling people that they are hearing a fact when what they are hearing is an opinion. And that is just about, as far as I'm concerned, one of the very worst things that an anchor, a host, somebody who is telling you I'm coming straight down the middle. I think that's one of the worst things you can do, because that is exactly why your audience comes to you. They want to trust you. They want to trust that if you're telling them something is a fact, that it actually is a fact. And it's not just your editorializing, but that was pure editorialization on Stephanopoulos' behalf with an assist from the judge and the Washington Post, but it was opinion nonetheless. And that is, I think, one of the biggest sins in journalism, is to tell people that you're just playing it straight and when you're actually opining. And so actually what his peers should be doing is saying, you screwed the rest of us here in a really big way, and we are going to do better because of it. To the extent they talk about this being quote unquote chilling, I hope that it does have a chilling effect. I'm saying that even as a journalist, against some of this really, really bad behavior that is misleading people who are desperate for facts. So if you're telling people you're delivering facts, just do it. And to the extent you're not, I do hope it chills that.
We have the ad here. Remember this? That was a great one.
This is an apple. Some people might try to tell you that it's a banana. They might scream banana, banana, banana over and over and over again. They might put banana in all caps. You might even start to believe that this is a banana. But it's not. This is an apple.
Oh my God. Facts first, it reads. CNN.
It's a Zucker classic.
Yeah, personally done at his request, reportedly. So, I guess that's not how the jury saw it. They saw an apple, and it was George Stephanopoulos who saw a banana. That's really what happened. He saw the banana. He saw the banana being misused in ways the jury did not. And this jury was not on the same page. It's really amazing to watch it all go down and to watch the suffering. Jim Acosta and Brian Stelter not saying, this is a moment to reflect on how to be more careful. And you know what would be a great idea? Bring in a defamation attorney to educate all of us so that we don't make a similar mistake. Instead, it's they bent the knee. The rest of us have to stand stronger. And you know what I think should happen now, especially given that and sort of this reaction across the left-wing media? I think Trump should start writing letters to the people at MSNBC who called him a rapist over and over and over. I mean, now he's got a settlement for $15 million. It's going to his presidential library. And they had to pay attorney's fees, $1 million. And they had to issue an apology and a statement on their reporting admitting that it was false. If I were Trump, I'd be having my lawyer do a LexisNexis search for all the people who said in a factual way, I mean, you could say, I believe he's a rapist, or it's obvious to me he raped her, right? That's all fine. That's opinion. But you cannot say, as Stephanopoulos did, he is a rapist. He raped E. Jean Carroll. That's defamatory. So if I were Trump, I would spread the pain around.
You know, the most astonishing thing in the Acosta Stelter clip is that they're defending, as some matter of journalistic integrity, the right to say false things about the president of the United States and to misinform their viewers on national television. One would think the reaction would be, you know, this is unfortunate, but we have such a major responsibility that we do pay a price when we screw up and don't correct ourselves promptly and tell our viewers the truth in a prompt manner. And fortunately, here at CNN, we don't have anything to worry about because we just strive to bring viewers the truth and the straight facts every day. But I mean, this is not the one I would really try to stand on principle on.
No, it's not. Let me tell you something. This is why we did a long episode that we released over the weekend about how the Duke lacrosse case, you know, the fake rape case, unfolded and collapsed, and how it was really the beginning of what we now call wokeness in the media, the way they covered these stories, how they choose a side based on skin color, potentially class, privilege, and gender, and how they never learned. Even though that case blew up in their faces, they just never learned. They doubled and tripled down and so on. It's a good episode. You guys should listen to it. I actually got some sweet notes about it from the players' families. So we did that, and we were pointing out that the media, that's the reason that this alternative ecosystem was born, you know, the digital lane. And I said on the show, necessity is the mother of all invention. You know, people they realized over time, and Trump really helped, how dishonest the media was and is, and just demanded someplace else to go. And then bit by bit, it started populating, and they fled the mainstream, so-called mainstream, in incredible numbers. Like that, the GMA is cratering in the ratings. We've talked about MSNBC now regularly getting, Slashies in the demo, which is below 50,000. Slashies is true shame. You would never want to look the boss in the face if you've gotten Slashies under 50,000 in the 25 to 54-year-old. That's what sets your advertising rates. And the collapse in the overall is what goes to how much your cable subscribers are going to renew your deal for. How much are they going to pay to have MSNBC or CNN on their lineup? Less this go round than they did the last, that's for sure. Because the power of these networks is diminishing quickly. So they're going to lose money in advertising, and they're going to lose money in their subscription fees that they get. And then you look at what's happening in our lane. And my executive producer, Steve Krakauer, sent this to me just recently because, you know, we keep an eye on our numbers. It made news back in July when our YouTube feed beat the YouTube feed of NBC News, CBS News, the BBC, Sky News, and many others, okay? It made news, made national news. November, which was a presidential election, as you know, not just for Megyn Kelly, but for all those same organizations. As far as I know, CNN and all these others made a big deal out of the presidential election too. In November alone, we, just on our YouTube, this does not count SiriusXM audience. This does not count our podcast audience. It does not count social media audience, just YouTube. In 1 month, we had 194 million and a half. 194 million views. Okay, almost 200 million people were watching this show in November. Think about it. How did the others do? NBC News, we crushed them by 50 million. CNN, they beat us by, we had 2/3 of their audience when we last looked at it in July. We had 2/3 of what they were getting on YouTube. CNN, we killed them this time. They lost to us too. They got 155. We beat them by 40 million. I could go on. I mean, all the mainstream, nets, they lost to us. That's all of them. All their shows. That's Jake Tapper. That's Anderson Cooper. That's the 9 p.m. lady who never smiles. That's the morning show. That's all of them. All of them together lost to just this show. Yay, good for us. I'm happy to have a victory lap. I won't lie, but it's really not about that. The point I'm raising is they're collapsing. And my God, I shudder to think what's going to happen this month when all their audiences fled. You know, that was when their audience's interest was at its peak. Our numbers are still very strong. So are Fox's, you know. Anyway, the point is, how can this model continue, Emily? How can these anchors continue to be paid these mega millions dollar sums? Rachel Maddow took a pay cut for her 1 hour a week from $30 million to $25 million a year. But there is just no way that this business model can be sustained for much longer.
Well, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because as you were going through those numbers, I'm thinking in my head, the overhead that sustains this model that is losing to much more nimble and leaner operations is astounding. I mean, if you look at, just even the bare bones, like Joe Rogan set, it's so funny how upset many people in the corporate press get about Joe Rogan, because he's just out there with like his whiskey on the table, his cigars on the table in a room. He has like 2 camera views. It's just like insane how competitive that is with these operations that have, their midtown, glossy, newsrooms with just the salaries. I mean, it's just incredible. So it's not sustainable. And there was a glimmer of recognition of that when Jeff Zucker tried to launch CNN Plus, I think is what it was called. But just, it was such a disaster because they didn't have the guts or the courage or the wisdom to say what needs to happen on something like CNN Plus. Not only do we need to take the overhead down and get on this off ramp to the digital world, we actually need to understand the content demands of our audience, which would be, they understand you can draw a line from Duke Lacrosse to the Rolling Stone Virginia rape hoax piece, to the Aziz Ansari Me Too movement piece. Like, the American people sort of see what's happened, and the CNN audience sees what happened, and they find it interesting. And they now want people to be way more authentic in their delivery because they lost their trust as they sort of traced that line in real time. Saw a lot of people's lives get ruined unjustly, were lied to over and over again about politics. So, they are not willing to create the content. They might be willing to like sort of take the playbook, and sort of look at the numbers, but they're not going to see improvement if the content itself, like, it's one thing to have a good YouTube audience and to, take your costs down and be a little bit more nimble and build digital platforms. It's another thing entirely to give people the content they want. And that's where they're going to go wrong.
Yeah, they don't get it. We played that soundbite last week of Leslie Stahl talking to Peggy Noonan, like, I don't know why this is happening. Why is the legacy media collapsing? Hello, Leslie. You should come on. I will explain it to you. I'd be happy to. A lot of examples at CBS News. And by the way, ABC News, this is just the latest, that we're talking about, like an extreme. There was a day not long ago where that hot mess that they air in the mornings called The View had to issue not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 corrections, legal corrections. 4 legal notes. We only have 3 of them on camera, but look at this.
Sorry, everyone. I have another legal note.
My God.
Both Trump and Pam Bondi have denied allegations of a quid pro quo. I have a legal note.
You want to take this one, Joy, or are you
Matt
good?
Gaetz has long denied all allegations and has not been charged with any crime.
That's true.
Also, another legal note. Pete Hegseth's lawyer said he paid the woman in 2023 to head off the threat of a baseless lawsuit.
Oh.
He has denied any wrongdoing.
Not to mention what they did at that debate, where once again, they tried to fact check only one side. And then when their fact checks got fact checked, they cowered. They cowered in fear. This is a pattern with them. They're lucky it was only 15 million. We're not done with the media. Trump has just announced he's suing another outlet. We'll talk about who it is. And we've got to get to what happened with Clarissa Ward, not to mention the drones. Don't go away. Looking for the perfect gift, or maybe just a treat for yourself, or something that people are not expecting, like a hostess gift, or something, for your spouse that they would never predict. Think about this. Firecracker Farm hot salt. That's fun. Who's expecting that? But everybody would love it. It's an awesome gift. It's beautifully packaged and unlike anything else out there. Tasty, handcrafted, totally unique, perfect for anyone who loves bold flavors. It's not your typical salt. Every stainless steel push grinder is packed with amazing flavor. It's available in heat levels from mild, for people like me, to wow, like my friends in Texas. So there's something for everyone. Every sprinkle brings out incredible flavor without overpowering your dish. Firecracker Farm hot salt is made with love by a small family business. Plus, a percentage of every sale goes to support charities Operation 300 and the Pipe Hitter Foundation. But here's the thing. Firecracker is a small operation, so they can only make so much at a time. Especially during the holidays, there's always a chance they will run out. So get it while you can. It's the perfect gift, but you don't want to wait too long or you could miss out. Firecracker Farm hot salt, handcrafted, flavorful, and unforgettable. Get yours today at firecracker.farm. Unbelievable what's happening right now. I've got to tell you, it's just, the meltdown continues. Here's Steve Schmidt from the discredited, vile Lincoln Project on the Stephanopoulos ABC News settlement. Quote, the pace of capitulation will increase, and along with it, a deep freeze will settle over most of America's newsrooms. End quote. Well, I've got news for you, Steve Schmidt. If Trump winning against ABC News or getting them to settle in that case causes a deep freeze in any given newsroom, then they're doing the news wrong. Because those of us who cover him and the other side fairly have no fear whatsoever. I mean, all you can do is your best to remain factual and to label opinion as such. No one's perfect. ABC News isn't expected to be perfect, but when they screw up or any other newsroom screws up, you're expected to own it. And the law acknowledges that. Here's more. Brian Stelter. ABC News settled Donald Trump's defamation suit against the network and George Stephanopoulos because this problem needed to go away, an ABC executive remarked on condition of anonymity. Ooh, big scoop. Okay, he goes on. But the speculation about why ABC agreed to settle and why now and why at such expense is not going away. This is not a scoop. This is nothing. Because it needed to go, hello.
Yeah,
that's
you get
not
it
interesting.
Now, right? We all
totally
understand it.
The light bulb went off.
Oh, that's
but
what
here
happened.
Here is something that just happened. Trump is down at Mar-a-Lago, as you know, and just announced another lawsuit that's coming, not against a media figure, but against Iowa pollster Ann Seltzer. Listen to this.
I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper, which had a very, very good pollster who got me right all the time. And then just before the election, she said I was going to lose by 3 or 4 points, and it became the biggest story all over the world. And in my opinion, it was fraud and it was election interference. And we'll probably be filing a major lawsuit against them today or tomorrow. We're filing one on 60 Minutes, you know about that, where they took Kamala's answer, which was a crazy answer, a horrible answer, and they took the whole answer out and they replaced it with something else she said.
Okay, just correcting there. It looks like they're going to file it against the Des Moines Register, the paper for which Ann Seltzer works, and not necessarily her personally, but obviously it's all based on her. By the way, just a thing for the viewers. You heard Trump there say, and in my opinion, it's fraud. In my opinion, it was fraud. Why does he say that? Why does he add that phrase? Because he understands what the legal limits are. If he says they committed fraud and they didn't, they could sue him. That's what he's worried. So he couches it as opinion, which is protected by the First Amendment. And if George Stephanopoulos had said, in my opinion, he raped her, he would have been protected too. He can say that. He cannot go out there and say a jury found him civilly liable for rape, because that's a factual statement and his statement was not factual. So you heard him there outlining his cases. He just settled the one with ABC. He's got one against, now coming, I guess, against the Des Moines Register about that poll that he says was fraudulent. And then you heard him reference there, he's also suing 60 Minutes for $10 billion. Is that right, guys? $10 billion for their editing of the Kamala Harris interview. And there is another lawsuit against the Pulitzer Prize Committee for its behavior around the honor it gave the New York Times for its coverage of the Russia hoax. And while that third one sounded the most absurd to me, it's just survived motion practice. A judge refused to throw it out on the papers. And it's as crazy as it sounds, like David Axelrod just sent out a tweet describing it as he's suing the Pulitzer Committee for honoring the Times coverage of Russian election interference. That's not exactly right. He's actually suing the Pulitzer Committee for its own statements about its decision to honor the Times. It was asked to do a review by Trump, who was complaining, saying, why are you honoring them? Everything they reported turned out to be fake. And they did a review, and they came back and said, and I'm reading here, the separate reviews, we conducted reviews, the separate reviews converged in their conclusions, no passages or headlines, that no passages or headlines, contentions or assertions in any of the winning submissions were discredited by facts that emerged subsequent to the conferral of the prizes. And Trump's contention is that's absolutely wrong. There were many, many facts that emerged to show the New York Times had it dead wrong on the Russia hoax. And you saying that was a further defamation. You, the prize committee, defamed me. That's fair game. That's not just, hey, you shouldn't have given the honor to them. That would not be a good lawsuit. So there's the Pulitzer Prize one. The lawsuit against 60 Minutes, I will say right here, is laughable and should go away. It is absurd. They are dishonest and should be shamed. But it's not illegal to make an edit that helps one candidate versus another. That one's going nowhere, in my opinion. Don't know about the judge in the case. Maybe it's a Trump-friendly guy that could get him past a round or two, but that's not going anywhere. In any event, the way the media is going to take this, Eliana, is it's an all-out assault. It's retribution. And what I see is a litigious guy who's continuing in his litigious nature and, doing what he's always done. Sue people who say nasty things about him.
Yeah, Trump has always had lawsuits as a weapon in his arsenal. And what's surprising, we said this is astonishing that the ABC News lawsuit succeeded. So what's surprising is when they're meritorious, when they have success, when George Stephanopoulos and ABC News are forced to pay $15 million because they were so sloppy. So I have not seen or read about the three that you just mentioned, but it does strike me that the CBS News one, while I know that the three of us have talked about the CBS News edits and Trump's claims about them on the show. Look, what they did may have been wrong. We may take issue with it, but I sort of doubt they transgressed a law there. And the Pulitzer one, I just don't know anything about. I would have to go read their statements. But it shouldn't be surprising to anybody that Trump is suing all these people. He's one of the most litigious people in the country. Yep. So, let's just expect lots of legal fines. I will say, though, where he files the suits is important. The ABC News lawsuit was filed in Florida, which meant that unlike some of the other lawsuits that we've seen brought against Trump, which were successful because he faced hostile juries, I think that the ABC News suit had more likelihood of success because ABC News would have faced a hostile jury in the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm. I believe, I'm trying to look this up here, I believe the lawsuit against CBS News, which is based on an allegation that they somehow committed consumer fraud by submitting a dishonestly edited interview with Kamala Harris, is in a Texas state court, which would be very helpful to Trump. And I believe, if I'm not confusing my lawsuits, that it's in front of a Trump-appointed judge. I'll go back and look at that, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's in Texas, and it's in front of a Trump judge. So that's probably what they're banking on. And CBS News is saying this case should be bounced to New York, where we are based and where we committed this alleged offense, and where we can get a more left-wing judge that maybe Trump did not appoint. So yeah, I mean, by the way, plaintiffs forum shop all the time where they try to file the lawsuit in the jurisdiction most favorable to them. In any event, we'll see how all these play out. Look, all these organizations have more money than God. They have lawyers on staff, general counsels and so on, and they can use some of their profits that they've earned in defaming and maligning Trump unfairly for all these years to hire outside counsel to handle these things, right? Like, these are two sophisticated parties suing one another, right? Like, Trump is a sophisticated party, CBS News is a sophisticated party, and so is ABC News, and so is the Pulitzer Prize Committee. They can handle this litigation. He's trying to send a message. And by the way, I mean, like, it'd be nice if you could get some of the people who called you Hitler, but the problem is that's opinion. No one said, as a matter of fact, he's Hitler. So that one, you can get away with. Okay, I want to move on.
They probably got very close to saying that.
Yeah, like he's Hitler incarnate. He's actual Hitler.
Right.
I think that's actually going to be really interesting. And I actually don't think this is going to cow the newsrooms from negative coverage of Trump. It's their bread and butter. It's their oxygen. They won't know how to speak if it's not for that. And some people are like, well, they've already been calmer. You know why they've been calmer? Because Trump's not doing anything. There's very little to talk about right now. You just wait. You just wait until Trump gets back in office. None of these news organizations is going to be saying, well, he won the popular vote. Well, he has a mandate. Well, we're going to back off because we want to get Republican viewers watching us. That's not going to happen. They're going to go back to their normal Trump derangement syndrome selves and do what they normally do. And it's not like they defame him every day. What Stephanopoulos did there was really egregious. And if you don't go to that level on your defamation, he probably will ignore you. But if you do what he did, you can and should be sued. That one is totally fair. So I don't predict a chilling effect. I think they love bashing him too much. Oh, great. Let me just ask my team a question. Is this on the record? Is this readable out loud? Yes. Okay. Sorry. So we, as I said at the top of the show, reached out to Trump's lawyer in connection with the settlement with ABC News and the $15 million. And okay, just making sure. Hold on. Sorry, forgive me because we don't normally let this play out live on the air, but I'm just getting it. Making sure this is on the record, not just on background before I read anything. Okay, we've got to find out. We've got to find out. Forgive me. We don't want to commit similar sins to the colleagues we've been ripping on. But to the extent we can read it, we will in just a minute. Okay, here's what we should do. We're going to put a pin in that. We'll get back to it. But let's move on to Clarissa Ward, because I don't know if you gals saw the reporting. Did you see it, Emily? You're smiling.
Oh, yeah. I'll never forget it. Indelible.
Okay. It was indelible. So for the audience members who didn't hear us talk about this with Hugh on Friday, and you should, because we went back and we really deconstructed that moment. Clarissa Ward of CNN walked into what was supposed to be a prison in Syria with some handler who was associated with the new Al-Qaeda adjacent group that's just taken over Syria. And her handler walked into the prison with her, and one of Bashar al-Assad's prisoners was still in prison. She said everything was open. All the cells were open and the people had left, but there was one that was locked. And so she said, we had the guy shoot off the lock on this one cell. They made us turn off our cameras. The cameras go off, and then they open the cell after this guy has now shot off the lock, and they walk into the cell, which looks pristine except for one blanket neatly laid out. You don't see anything. I don't know what's off camera, to be fair, but I didn't see a bucket of human waste or anything. There's certainly no trash, no clothes, no debris anywhere. Looks clean. Underneath the blanket emerges a man after several hello, 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 hello. He's lying there. Then finally he emerges like a phoenix. Hello. And Clarissa Ward represents that this is oh my God, it's a prisoner. Look, we found somebody. And then it gets very dramatic and she holds him. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. Meanwhile, she's not speaking Arabic, which she says she does speak. She's speaking English to the guy. Okay. And she says that this is one of Assad's prisoners. Then we see them outside and she's rubbing his back. There he is. And look how clean his outfit is. He doesn't have a scuff on him. He doesn't have dirt on him. His fingernails are clean. His hand is shaking, supposedly. He says he's been in jail for 3 or 4 months, and he's been in captivity without food or water for 4 days. Looks fine, doesn't squint when he first sees the sun. We don't know. Well, some online sleuths noticed a lot of these things. And by the way, we also reported that when Clarissa gave her report to Jake Tapper after the fact, she said she offered him her cell phone so he could call his family. And his response was like, no. She said he was too in shock to call his family, who I think we're probably wondering where the guy was for 4 months, probably wondering dead or alive, but like didn't take the offer. All this stuff is suspicious and made it look very much like Clarissa and her brethren at CNN were used to dump out a little propaganda to the rest of us, which is a sin, especially in this line of reporting. It's the number one risk. You know, after getting shot, it's the number one thing you worry about as a foreign correspondent, that some group is going to use you in a clever way where you become their mouthpiece unwillingly. And now there was a reporter who has been in captivity twice in Syria who was like, this stinks to high heaven. Syrian prisons are as dirty and messed up and covered with debris as you can get. And this doesn't smell or look right. And now we find out that they've done more investigating, the sleuths, and the name that Clarissa Ward and CNN attributed to this guy was not correct. It did not prove to be true. The sleuths have been looking into this. It is not the man she said it was. And now CNN has been forced to conduct an investigation. They've launched an investigation to see what happened here. Eliana, I feel like we kind of know what happened.
Look, to me, the open question in this, and it's amazing, it was actually a Syrian media watchdog that called CNN on this, was CNN in on this, or were they duped? Did they want, and were they making a made-for-TV moment? Did they participate in this, or were they totally hoodwinked? And reports about the man's actual identity were that he was a member of Bashar al-Assad's military forces who tortured those who refused to bribe him. That's what the Syrian media watchdog is saying.
So he's a torturer.
Not only was he not a prisoner Assad, he was a henchman of Assad's. So it's pretty far off the mark for CNN.
Wow. So what was he doing in the cell? Like, if that's true, I can see him wanting to pretend he was a prisoner of Assad's as opposed to an alleged torturer who was working on behalf of Assad. But he would not have been locked up by Assad in a jail for 4 months, you know, one presumes, if this is the nature of the relationship. So even if that's true, Emily, we don't know why he was in this cell with a lock on it and what the game was.
Yeah, it may be that he actually duped the rebels, who they themselves duped Clarissa Ward and the CNN team. I think it does perhaps look like a combination. Yes, it's double dupe, which is, this is perfectly fits the propaganda that Jolani and the rebels right now are trying to distribute throughout the Western world. They need Western cooperation. They are Islamists, and what they need to show is that they are quote unquote freedom fighters, that they are liberating Syria from Assad. And so literally liberating a man from a prison is sort of exactly what you would expect to see from them. And it's actually so on the nose that you would expect for a pre-produced package by CNN. Because unless I'm wrong, this didn't air live. This was a pre-produced package. They had voiceovers and all of that stuff prepped. This should have gone through a lot of layers of editorial oversight. And so it's one thing for Ward to get duped in the moment, if it were happening live or something like that. It's an entirely different thing to have a name and to have so many details. I mean, whoever's editing this package, producing this package, would have had the same questions theoretically that people immediately had on the internet about the nature of the setup. Why does this look like it's staged? Why does this all seem so strange? Those questions would have been asked in production. So it's all very, very, very odd, but it does show this sort of credulousness. I think at the very least, it shows a credulousness of being, led around by the rebel group and having this opportunity to see someone be literally liberated when the propaganda line is about liberation. It should have seemed to them too good to be true. And that it didn't, I think, is pretty suspicious and unfortunate for their credibility.
Eliana, the statement, this is per The Wrap, is CNN to The Wrap. We have subsequently been investigating his background and are aware that he may have given a false identity. Then they say no one other than the CNN team was aware of our plans to visit the prison building featured in our report that day. The events transpired as they appear in our film. The decision to release the prisoner featured in our report was taken by the Guard, a Syrian rebel. We reported the scene as it unfolded, including what the prisoner told us, with clear attribution. We have subsequently been investigating his background and are aware that he may have given a false identity. We are continuing our reporting into this and the wider story. On Sunday, it was Verify Psy, I think it's short for Syria, a website that describes itself as an independent and unbiased platform specializing in fact-checking in Syria, that cast doubt on the man's claim. The website's writer, Abdul Salam al-Hamwi, wrote that the man, who identified himself as Abdel Garbal from Homs, claimed he had been in prison for 3 months, and then he got into some of the facts that suggest that's not how that looked at all. Then they searched for records for a man named Adel Garbal, could not find any. Instead, they claim he's actually this man named Salama Mohammed Salama, who's also known as Abu Hamza, a first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force intelligence who is well known for his behavior, and goes on to some of the details that you already offered. Here's the thing. You're kind of in the business of checking those things out. If you're CNN and you're Clarissa Ward, it's really not like that big a sacrifice to take an extra day. No one's like going to beat you to that story. To kick the tires and figure out whether this guy really is who he says he is. And CNN also has reporters and producers all around the world, I'm sure, including in Syria. So do you think this is a case of just negligence, downsizing, if in fact they've already been embarrassed because they reported the wrong name from their own admission. Negligence, downsizing, or just too good a story, Emily? Like it's just too good. Their star reporter looks like the next Christiane Amanpour. Let's do this thing.
I think it was probably too good. I mean, at the bare minimum, you wouldn't ask for a name unless you were going to check it. But at the bare minimum, check the name. I mean, they could have been in touch with the Syrian fact-checking outlet. Now, it's very hard to do this stuff in Syria right now because there's so many different factions and lines have shifted and allegiances have shifted. So I understand that it's hard. But if you're going to air it and you're going to be so dramatic when it airs and you're going to really push it, man, just the fact that they don't seem to have checked the name, done the most basic thing, checked the name. And there were all of these obvious questions that people on the internet raised within like 10 minutes of the thing airing. That just tells me they were too excited to like really, as you said, kick the tires and do their due diligence. It just probably seemed too good for them not to use.
And like, it could be an even bigger story. Like, oh my God, we found an alleged torturer. Like, has he been hiding? What, did he have a fallout with Assad? Why is he in this prison? Was he really in this prison? Was he placed in it? Did he fool the rebels into doing like, if I were CNN, I'd be like, this is like, let's get to the bottom of it before you hit air. Let's get to the bottom of what really happened there. It's even more interesting if you go to air with, here's what happened as it unfolded. Then we found out he was lying to us. This is who we found out he is. Like, that's a great story, but it doesn't really support the narrative that Clarissa, Mother Teresa, went in there and rescued the poor, sad little man who hadn't eaten and rubbed his back. I'm telling you, it's like, this is the same network that let Chris Cuomo come out of that basement and pretend that he hadn't been out, right? We all knew he'd been out. We've seen the reports. He was out fighting with his neighbors during COVID. But then they let him do his dramatic, like, Mary Ingalls, Pa, I can see. I can see. Actually, it was I can't see. Anyway, okay, back to the Trump settlement with ABC News. We have now made sure we can read what I was about to read. Okay, so our producer spoke with Trump's attorney, Alejandro Brito, and here's what he said. Our question was, why did ABC decide to settle? The long and short of it is the nature of the claims that were brought and the fact that they were verifiable from a standpoint as factually untrue from George Stephanopoulos. Trump's legal team had separate video clips of George Stephanopoulos on ABC that showed Stephanopoulos knew that Trump had not been found liable for rape. This was not a situation where there was simply a misunderstanding. George Stephanopoulos interviewed E. Jean Carroll after the trial on his show, and we had video of his questions to Carroll. And when he asked her how she felt after Stephanopoulos said Trump was not liable for rape, juxtapose that with his questioning of Mace. That's very interesting. It's a good point. We actually we should go back and pull that.
How about yesterday in the courtroom? The first announcement was made, and it was that he was not found liable for rape. What were we thinking at that moment?
Was there something, this is us, in discovery that scared ABC into settling? Answer, the possibility of something coming out in discovery may have had led to the settlement. Trump legal team had scheduled to take the deposition of an ABC rep, and George Stephanopoulos. The lawyer suspects ABC did not want it to happen. Quote, it wasn't something ABC learned that caused them to settle, but rather something Trump's team may learn, he said, end quote. Our question, had they already exchanged documents, to my point of normally you exchange texts and papers before you sit for the deposition. He said that there had been minimal document exchange in discovery. Trump team was waiting on ABC and Stephanopoulos to respond to discovery demands. He said at the time of the settlement, ABC had only, quote, produced one piece of paper, end quote, very interesting, and not provided any other documentation. He believes fear of what Trump could learn about ABC and Stephanopoulos in document exchange may have played a role in the settlement. That's very interesting. So they had handed over one piece of paper. They had not turned over the texts or the instant messages or the oh shit exchanges when they got the lawsuit or any of that stuff. And they were about to have to. They panicked, understandably. And now we'll never know what was in those documents, but spare us the, oh, poor news organizations. How will they ever cover the news now, Eliana, right? It's like, I stand by everything I've written down with my team. Every word I've said on this show, no one's perfect, but I could defend all of it in court. Something stinks at ABC News.
Yeah, I think it goes back to our initial conversation that they decided that paying $15 million was less painful than the protracted embarrassment and potential humiliation of what would come out in those documents, than the PR cost to them. As we saw, it's actually interesting to contrast that with Fox News, where basically they did go through discovery. They were going to go through trial. They ended up suffering the PR costs and paying the money. It's like, they might as well just paid the money and avoided all the discovery and the depositions, which seems to be what ABC News did here.
Yeah. No trial in that one, though. Okay, let's shift gears for a moment because I want to spend a minute on the WNBA and Caitlin Clark. You guys saw that, speaking of bend the knee, she did not look like a Lilliputian when she did it. She's a tall lady. And she decided to go woke. And when Time Magazine made her Athlete of the Year, she accepted. She was fine going into the spotlight and saying, yeah, thank you. I'd love to be on your cover in my sexy outfit. Let's do this thing. Interview me in my sexy plunging dress. I do like the spotlight. It feels good to be in front of the camera. Okay, fine. I have no problem with that. However, I do when you get out there and you say, but I feel really bad about it. I'm very sad I'm here because I'm so white. I'm Time Magazine so white. And I really wish you were paying attention to the black players. That's my true wish. If you could just stop looking at me under the Klieg lights and look over there at the black players. That's what I really want from you, Time magazine. And then she went on to talk about how it's my truth and her white privilege and all that. So, okay. So did the bending of the knee, I mean, I have a soundbite that I want to play for you, and it involves the owner, I believe, of the Mystics, which is, co-owner Sheila Johnson. She owns a different team, the Mystics, within the WNBA. And I really think, I was very critical of Caitlin Clark for doing this. Maybe what she said really will win over the WNBA that's been bullying her mercilessly because she's white and earning it. Maybe I was just too dense to see it. And Caitlin is very clever. And actually, the league is really going to get behind her now and say, you know what? She is the best. She earned this honor. Let's watch.
And this year, something clicked with the WNBA. And it's because of the draft of the players that came in. It's just not Caitlin Clark. It's Reese. We have so much talent out there that has been unrecognized. And I don't think we can just pin it on one player. Why couldn't they have put the whole WNBA on that cover and said, the WNBA is the league of the year because of all the talent that we have? Because when you just keep singling out one player, it creates hard feelings. And so now you're starting to hear stories of racism within the WNBA, and I don't want to hear that.
This is a fool's errand, Emily. Why? Why did she do it, and what did it get her?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a cry for help. The best case scenario is that this is just a cry for help for Caitlin Clark, who's been getting the tar beat out of her by players who are taking out their anger over her white privilege physically onto Caitlin Clark. I mean, the clips, if you watch them back, are just horrendous and so insane. And that's the type of pressure that she's under. And maybe she thought that she had no choice. She had to say it. It doesn't take the agency away from her from actually saying it. She probably believes it because it's all she ever hears from everyone around her. But even if she didn't believe it, she realizes that it's probably physically dangerous for her not to say something like that. But of course, it wasn't good enough to say that this is all like that Caitlin Clark isn't about the surge of interest in the WNBA is not just about Caitlin Clark is stupid. It is literally just about Caitlin Clark. And it's not because Caitlin Clark is white. It's because she had this meteoric, crazy story in the tournament. And it was just a narrative that was too good for people to not pay attention to. It was crazy. It was such an amazing story. And that is what it was. It was not her race. It was that. And of course, we have to listen to CNN segments like that one with Sheila Johnson about how the reason it should have been the whole WNBA literally doing the cringe, everyone gets a trophy routine is because it was hurting people's feelings. I mean, this woman is so out of touch with where, like, the country is basically in the position right now of throwing all of that like bullshit out the window. And she's going on CNN acting like she has the moral high ground saying it.
Right. Hello. It's like 2020 called and they want their commentary back. Eliana, Caitlin Clark is 22 and hasn't yet learned the lesson that bending the knee to the woke mob does not produce better results in one's life. It doesn't. Nothing good will come from it. You will alienate your fan base that does not want to see you buy into their bullshit narratives about race or white privilege in the WNBA. And you will gain absolutely no grace or quarter from your critics who are not persuadable.
Well, I think you're exactly right. It'd be one conversation if we were going to talk about, look, she made the decision to go along to get along, and this is the way to silence her critics. And okay, one could understand that. But the reality is that accepting this award and then saying what she said is not going to silence any critics. It's not going to help her go along to get along. And you see that from the reaction of the Mystics owner. And which is why it's clear she's young and stupid and not unsophisticated and doesn't realize this. But the thing that really struck me, Megyn, is I grew up a fan of the NBA in the era of Michael Jordan. And since then, as I've followed less closely, the major NBA stars have been, since Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, all African-American men. And is the stipulation that female basketball fans are somehow uniquely racist? Caitlin Clark is really talented, but we haven't seen race be a barrier to major stardom in the male basketball league and riches.
It's a good point. No, I mean, they're obviously saying that the only reason people want to watch Caitlin is that she's white. They're excited because she's white. And I think the record seems pretty clear. They're excited to watch Caitlin because she's great.
And that's what we've seen in the NBA, of course.
Right? Who are reacting to her color.
We've seen that exactly, time and again in the NBA, where the talent and hard work, there's actually a wonderful Netflix series on about these NBA players. It follows their families. LeBron James is one of them. But, the amount when you watch and really appreciate the amount of hard work it takes to be an elite athlete the way these guys are, it's just astonishing. And when you see them, they're not talking about the racism of NBA fans.
I'm sorry, but if she really just wants the spotlight to be on the deserving Black players who surround her and on whose backs this league was built, then you shouldn't have taken the honor. Then you should have said, make the WNBA the team of the year, the league of the year. What I don't need right now is an additional singled out honor. That's what she should have done. You can't have it both ways. She wants the attention. She wants to be in the spotlight. And then she wants to just throw a bone to the girls who were rejected. And so it doesn't come as any surprise to me that they don't want her discarded bones, and that this did nothing to appease them and actually probably infuriated all of us. We'll see. Okay, more with Emily and Eliana right after this quick break. Don't go away. This holiday season, millions of families across America will rely on credit card rewards to visit their loved ones. But according to our sponsor, the Electronic Payments Coalition, DC politicians are trying to pass a bill that would lead to the end of credit card rewards. What? They say the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would mandate credit cards run on alternative networks, not the trusted and stable networks you probably use today. And they say there's no guarantee that the convenience, zero liability fraud protection, and rewards programs you know and love will remain. The Electronics Payments Coalition says corporate megastores will make more money while you sacrifice your payment convenience, rewards, and peace of mind. Find out more at guardyourcard.com and consider telling Congress to guard your card and to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. Learn more for yourselves at guardyourcard.com. Don't wait. Shop Cozy Earth right now before their most loved gifts sell out this holiday season. What's your favorite Christmas memory? Maybe curling up by the tree, the glow of the lights filling the room, spending time with the family, and feeling completely at peace? Cozy Earth helps you recreate that magic by transforming your home into a sanctuary, a haven of calm amidst life's chaos. Their bamboo sheet set is the ultimate in luxury. Designed to be incredibly breathable, it keeps you several degrees cooler for a night of uninterrupted rest. With a durable weave guaranteed to last 10 years, it's a thoughtful gift everyone can enjoy and use every day. And for those slow, cozy holiday mornings, Cozy Earth's long-sleeve bamboo pajama sets are a must-have. Luxuriously soft and stylish, they're perfect for lounging in total comfort while making lasting memories with loved ones. Want your Cozy Earth gifts by Christmas? Well, expedited shipping is available through December 20. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. Go to cozyearth.com/Megyn. Use my exclusive code MEGYN for up to 40% off your order. cozyearth.com/MEGYN. So, ladies, have you seen a drone yet?
Not yet.
Nope, nothing. I have to tell you,
not seen them in Northern Virginia.
I got some friends in Connecticut who have seen something. Like people are checking their Ring cameras, their footage, and seeing mysterious items. They're all over New Jersey now. The sightings have been New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and Virginia. But John Kirby, Pentagon spokesperson, maintains there's nothing to see here. And if there is, we don't know what it is, but there's nothing to worry about. He goes on with Martha McCallum, and this happens.
As I said yesterday, Martha, as soon as we know, we're going to.
No, I hear you. This is shocking. I got to tell you, this is shocking. We spend $824 billion on defense. We have the greatest intelligent capability in the world. So how can you stand there and say to the country right now, gosh darn, we just don't know what these are?
Because I'm not going to lie to you or to the American people, and I'm not going to say we know something when we don't.
Do you know and you can't say? Can you tell me that?
No, I'm telling you, Martha, I'm telling you we don't.
You don't. Why not just take one down and figure out what's going on?
Well, the idea of taking something down, again, you want to worry about public safety. First of all, we don't have enough conclusions to take that kind of a policy action. But let's just assume for a minute, Martha, that we did. I mean, you're not going to want to shoot something down where it could hit somebody's house or hurt somebody.
Well, the Coast Guard says that there are 30 of them following one of their ships in the ocean. So would that work?
I mean, again, we have to develop the policy options based on what we know we're dealing with here, and we just don't know enough to make those to take those kinds of actions.
Bullshit. Those are lies. You can tell. Those are lies one after the other. We're being misled. That I think we're pretty clear on. And, first it was you're not seeing what you think you're seeing. They're not out there. People are making it up. Then it was, they're fixed wing aircraft. And then, the Maryland governor came out and said, hello, we saw drones. And, person after person, credible witness after came out and said, these are drones. Stop it. Just stop it right now. And now it's okay. They're there, but we don't know what they are. But they said, there's nothing to worry about. And then the New Jersey lawmakers came out and said, no, you can't say that. We don't know what they are. How can you tell us we don't know whether we have cause to worry? And then you saw him dancing there. And now here's a man named John Ferguson. He's CEO, he says, of a drone manufacturing company in Kansas. He went viral over the weekend. We have not independently confirmed John Ferguson, but this guy's everywhere right now with his theory.
Hey, everyone. My name is John Ferguson. I'm the CEO of Saxon Aerospace here in Wichita, Kansas. But I'm a manufacturer of unmanned aircraft, military-grade unmanned aircraft, as you can see one of my systems here. I don't particularly believe that these have a nefarious intent. I could be wrong, but I want to give you the truth and what I believe. It's my own opinion, and I've not bounced this off of anybody. So, if you think it's bullshit, whatever. Yeah, these drones are not nefarious in intent. If they are, they are, but I doubt it. But if they are drones, the only reason why they would be flying and flying that low is because they're trying to smell something on the ground. My belief is they're trying to smell something on the ground. Gas leaks, radioactive material, whatever. These drones, I believe, are launched from a location that nobody knows, but I do believe that they're flying low enough that they're just trying to sniff the ground and try to find something.
Okay, I did not know that a drone could sniff. That is news to me. Okay. I've heard a few different theories along this line. Like they're out there running a psyop, like seeing how the public would react if and when they really are needed to respond to, for example, a dirty bomb or the detection of one, that they actually are trying to detect whether something has been released. And that's why they don't want to tell us, because it would cause a panic, which would be incredibly criminally negligent, right? To allow people to be whatever. These are all just theories that are being bandied about. We have absolutely no idea. That's the truth, Eliana.
Right. We have no idea. And I would say that the Biden administration is bedeviled in terms of its credibility with the public by the fact that there was a Chinese spy balloon flying over the country that it did not tell the public about until Americans saw it hovering in the sky. And it was a public pressure campaign that forced the administration to disclose what that was. And so when you hear them saying we have no idea what this is, I think it sort of strains credulity. And Kirby's response wasn't like, hey, we don't know what this is. We're taking it very seriously, and we're in the process of putting policy options in front of the president. We're going to come to a decision in the coming days. It just didn't, something didn't seem quite right.
As Judge Judy always says, it didn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it isn't true. It doesn't make sense, Emily, that we can't shoot down one of these reportedly hundreds of drones to see what the hell it is. Like she says, some of them are over the water. We absolutely could shoot one down. You're going to tell me the military wouldn't shoot down something that could possibly be a threat to national security or the lives of Americans when we don't know what the hell could be foreign released? Bullshit. No one believes that. What I believe is the government knows full well what they are, and it has its reasons for not telling us. We just don't know what they are yet, but we should find out. Here's Trump on what should happen here.
The government knows what is happening. Look,
there you go.
Our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because it was the enemy that blasted out. Even if they were late, they blasted. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people. And they should, because...
He sounds genuinely like he might not know, even though he's getting security briefings already, Emily.
But what he does know from having been briefed in the past is what they know generally, not to do the whole who knows what they know and we know. But he is aware of the kinds of intelligence that people with the highest levels of classification and access to get. He understands drone technology as it's used by the military. So it's interesting, I think, what he just said. And it would be staggering if the government did not know what these were at this point. This has been so sustained and has involved so many different sightings, some of which do seem to be like BS. But either way, there have been so many serious sightings at this point over such a long period of time. If they don't know, it's outrageous. It's a scandal. And I think it would be a much worse option for them to be going to the press and talking about how they don't know. If they truly don't know, that interview with Martha McCallum, I don't understand why that even happened. If they don't know, why are you talking? And if you do know, why are you talking if you're not going to tell us, or you're not going to have a better explanation? Seriously, this is such a disaster for them. Two things can't be true. It cannot be true that they don't know what this is and that there's no threat to the public. They can't know both of those things. They can't. That is absurd. Anybody can see through it. So it's a disaster for them right now.
Here is New Jersey Republican State Senator John Bramnick. Listen.
Why would the government allow the public to be so frustrated? Right. That brings me to the point that whatever these drones are doing, the government really doesn't want us to know. What that must mean is they're more concerned with us getting knowledge and being afraid of that information than having no knowledge and having all these questions. That's why I'm worried about it. It must be something going on that they can't tell us, because they are so fearful of what the public's going to do when they hear what the drones are doing.
Good point, Eliana. No?
A good point. And I should point out that if they don't know what these drones are doing and can't find out in about 30 minutes, that should frighten every American. So I think both alternatives here that we have are that they know and they're not disclosing it, or they don't know are disturbing.
Well, can I just say, it's not necessarily that we would be afraid. It's that we might also be angry. Maybe it's not something that we should be scared of, but maybe it is a use of resources that would really piss people off.
I just feel like they must know. They must know, because it's been going on for so long. They must be complicit. There's no way, like, how would it be going on this long if they didn't know what it was and hadn't ascertained that they want it or that it's not going to hurt anybody? That doesn't seem possible to me. The question is, why won't they tell us? That's my question. Ladies, that's for another day. Great to see you both. Thank you.
Thanks, Megyn.
Thanks, Megyn.
We're back tomorrow with Mark Halperin and crew. Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. We are 1 week out from Christmas. Just a warning to those who haven't done their shopping. 1 week to T-7 and T-6 till Christmas Eve, for those of you who like to wait until the last minute. Okay, the media story everyone is talking about has continued to evolve with reports now that George Stephanopoulos over at ABC News is defiant and humiliated after ABC agreed to pay Trump $15 million to settle his defamation lawsuit against the network over their star host's false and misleading segment with Representative Nancy Mace. You know, I went back to look at the so-called apology. That's how we referred to it the other day. I think that was erroneous. It wasn't really an apology. It was, we regret the statements. George Stephanopoulos regrets the statements. Well, that's not exactly an apology, is it? He was forced to say that by his network, and now he's reportedly humiliated, as I say. Plus, there's new reporting from the New York Times that sheds light on President Biden's, quote, weary goodbye, and the full extent of his infirmity, which continues to reveal itself day by day. And would you believe the team surrounding him is still trying to claim that behind the scenes, he's amazing. He's like that Olympic break dancer behind the scenes. What was her name? She stole the whole show. The terrible one. But she was fit and able to move, unlike our current president. And then we've got an update on those drones. They're slipping the truth inside of their lies now. What was it? Raygun. Okay, sounds like a toy that we're going to get our kids for Christmas. Anyway, joining me now to discuss all of this and more, Adam Carolla, host of The Adam Carolla Show. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Are you overwhelmed with back taxes or unfiled returns? Well, get ready, because since COVID relief ended, the IRS has hired 20,000 new enforcement agents, proposing millions of pay-up notices for 2025. If you're worried about IRS collection tactics, and of course you are if you haven't been perfect on your taxes, you don't have to face them alone. Tax Network USA can help. Tax Network USA is the nation's premier tax relief firm, and they've negotiated over $1 billion in tax relief for their clients. Their services include penalty forgiveness and hardship programs. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, their experts are ready to assist you. Even if you're behind on taxes, Tax Network USA can guide you through the process. Contact them for personalized support. Handling IRS matters without professional help is not smart. It's risky. Protect your financial security with guidance from Tax Network USA. To schedule a complimentary consultation, just call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. Don't let the IRS's aggressive tactics control your life. Empower yourself with Tax Network USA's support and take charge of your financial future. Visit tnusa.com/Megyn today. Adam, welcome back. Great to see you.
Always great to be on the show.
Okay, so I guess let's start with Stephanopoulos, he is humiliated and very angry, according to the reports, that this has happened to him. The New York Times goes inside the suit and talks about how executives had expected or had anticipated that there would be blowback to settling this, but they're in full revolt over there at ABC News, where they feel that the reputation has been unnecessarily sullied, that they didn't feel they should have settled with President Trump. And yet the Times pointing out that Disney had many reasons. Number one, there was a Judge Altanaga, chief judge in the Southern District of Florida, who had denied Disney's motion to dismiss with some very strong language, saying a reasonable jury could interpret Stephanopoulos' statements as defamatory, and then added in italics, Stephanopoulos stated 10 times that a jury or juries had found plaintiff liable for rape, which was obviously not true. And then they pointed out something we speculated about the other day, which was she had also rejected requests to delay the case, and Disney was told to turn over all remaining documents related to the case. Trump's lawyer told us they'd only given like one document. And so they had to produce not only all the emails with Stephanopoulos on them among his producers and so on, but he was going to have to sit for a deposition, which we knew. They were also worried that this could set an industry standard. In other words, this could go all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and New York Times versus Sullivan, which sets a very, very, very high bar for problematic speech, for finding speech problematic, could potentially be overturned. Anyway, what do you make of George Stephanopoulos' indignity at what has happened to him, Adam?
Well, okay, they worry about their reputation. So ABC's news division is worried about their reputation if they offer an apology. They blew up their own reputation over the last 5 years systematically, first with Russian collusion and 3 or 4 years of lying, or at least being wrong about that. And then that dovetailed right into COVID. So the two biggest stories of basically the last 8 or 9 years, they screwed up 10 ways to Sunday. So I would tend not to listen to ABC News, not because the dwarf news anchor offered an apology, but more that they lied about all the big stories, anything to do with Trump and anything to do with COVID. I mean, let's look at it this way. The two biggest stories of the last decade have been Trump and COVID and Trump. They got every single story wrong and or lied about every single story. So I will not be listening to ABC News, not because they're cowards and not standing up to this lawsuit, just because they're wildly inaccurate and probably beyond inaccurate, they're liars.
They say in the New York Post, in an exclusive, George is defiant. One source well, what does that mean? You defiant in what way? Like, you had to issue the words of regret. Your company had to pay $15 million. You're no longer in first place. I believe it's related to that debacle of a debate. There's been a revulsion after, that night there was one, and now there's been a mass exodus in their audience. And they want us to say, well, he's defiant. How? I mean, the latest news was he deactivated his X account. It doesn't sound defiant, Adam. It sounds like a coward.
This is their hijacking of the language. Remember, Kamala Harris wanted to end fracking, and then she wanted to continue fracking, and she wanted to end the border wall. Then she wanted to continue the border wall, but she was still staying true to her values. Okay, that means nothing. And every time there's a school shooting, somebody gets up to the podium and gets behind the microphone, a police chief or the mayor of the city, and says, this is unacceptable. Okay, it's unacceptable, but it just happened and it'll happen again. So there's this weird language thing where they try to make themselves into some sort of patriot heroes, except for they do nothing. And it's really a thing that was born on the left, and I never really got it. Defiant while you put your tail between your legs, and offer an apology and keep hammering checks you get from ABC. All right, well, that's defiant, then so be it. But defiant is quitting your job and hanging your own shingle somewhere else.
That's exactly right. The defiant is, I'm out of here. I refuse to participate in your conciliatory statement. I did nothing wrong, and I'm not going to let my gazillion-dollar paycheck force me into bending the knee here because I'm going to die on principle. No, that's defiant. This is not defiant. Deleting your X account because you're tired of the abuse you're getting from people who know you lied, that he was not found liable by a jury for rape. Why is it so hard for him just to admit that?
Well, I mean, these guys hate Trump, obviously, and they cannot be neutral about things. I was thinking about the other day. I mean, I was kind of talking about it on my podcast, which is every umpire in every baseball game has feelings about the two teams that are on the field. They just do. I mean, there has to be 1,000 guys umpiring Yankees games who grew up Yankees fans or Red Sox fans, and now they're behind the plate at Fenway. It just has to be, but they have to put all that aside and call balls and strikes. And the news used to do that, and they don't do it anymore. And it's now become apparent to those of us who are in the stands watching the game what is happening, because they're so blatant about it. It's obvious where he stands. It's obviously, when you see the A and B interviews between the ones they give Kamala Harris and the ones they give Trump or J.D. Vance or whomever, it's so abundantly evident now that I no longer really listen to them, because I don't think they're calling balls and strikes. I don't fault these people for having a preference. You're a human being. You're going to want either Trump or Harris. That's a fact. But then you have to do your job and call balls and strikes. And they don't do it anymore, and they can't.
All right, I got a story for you. Speaking of the Supreme Court, as I mentioned, there was some fear that if this went up to the Supreme Court, we might have enough justices to overturn New York Times versus Sullivan, which, for the record, I do not want. It sets a nice high bar that makes it very, very hard to sue for defamation if you're a public figure. And even as a public figure, I'm fine with that, because I'm also a member of the media and I'm an American first. And in America, what distinguishes us from virtually all of the other first world countries, never mind third, is you can say what you want here. With very, very few limits, you can say what you want. It takes a lot to get a judge issuing an opinion like this against you and having to pay $15 million. It takes 10 times of saying a jury found him civilly liable for rape when we put the screen up on the verdict form up on the screen the other day. Very clearly it says, is he guilty? Did he commit rape on the civil verdict? And it says no. Well, did he commit sexual assault? Yes. You can't. As a news anchor, language matters, especially around legal stuff like that. You can't. He said it 10 times. That's why the judge is so mad at him. Anyway, speaking of the Supreme Court, I've got a story for you, okay? A year or so ago, we're always railing on Broadway here. I'm sure you do the same, because if you go to Broadway, it used to be a really fun experience. You say you take your kids, you see a musical, like Old Man River. You have a good time. Now you go and it's a woke explosion. Doug and I went to see Macbeth with Daniel, what's his name, the James Bond guy, Craig. And it was supposed to be 1400 Scotland. It was a majority-minority cast. Okay, I don't think so, but okay. One of the lead players was in a wheelchair, which, okay. The king's son was played by a woman who had a blue mohawk. They had gotten rid of all costumes. I guess there's like a budget problem. So the lead character, I think it was the guy in the wheelchair, had a Mickey Mouse shirt on, which is like, I'm having difficulty suspending my disbelief here, people. Okay, so that's one. But then my daughter, then 12, went with some friends to a different play. And this play, trust me, I will round it back to the Supreme Court in a second. This play is showing now, and it's called I, Juliet. And it was supposed to be this reimagining of if Juliet had lived, and Juliet. Mm-hmm. And if Juliet had lived, like what would her life have been? Like girl power. I thought, oh, that's fun. And here's just a clip of me reacting after my daughter got back. This is last February in episode 715. Watch this. This was so in your face. I mean, for the listening audience, it shows two guys kissing on stage. Obviously, one of them is this guy who goes by he, she, and they. All of them. Adam, all of them. It's just so happy that now we're celebrating queer love, which is not at all what I thought something based on Shakespeare and about Juliet's next chapter was going to be. How about the non-disclosure of any of this in the write-up about the show? Don't we parents get a right to make a call? You could be sending a much younger child than 12 there. My kid and I have talked about these issues many times, but many haven't. This could be their first exposure to it. It's not up to Broadway to do that. Okay, so that was the two of us talking about how that play is covered with a bunch of trans people doing kissing and whatever. Well, not everyone has a problem with Anne Juliet, because would you look at who guest starred in it on Broadway within the past week? SOT 18 for the listening audience. It is Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Female empowerment. Sick. I like it too. I think what I like about it is that I am having a very strongly negative reaction to it. Like I hate it. Which makes me think it must be brilliant.
Got this feeling in my body. Can't stop the feeling. Got this feeling in my body. I can't stop the feeling.
I did it. I made it to Broadway.
Thoughts on that, Adam?
Well, my thoughts are, I have a multitude of thoughts, Megyn. One is the left is able and feels fine wearing their politics and their culture sort of on their sleeve, you know? Like if there was a right-wing justice doing some old play that Charlton Heston, you know, that was gun-centric and male-centric, you know, they would get slammed. They wouldn't do it. They would say, I don't like the optics of it. You're like, I'm on the Supreme Court, I'm conservative, and you want me to do a play with an all-white male cast about early settlers and how guns settled the West. They would just go, I'm going to get slammed. I don't like the optics of it. I'm not going to do it. People on the left do not care. I mean, it's like, I live in LA. I would see 1,000 Biden bumper stickers, 1,000 Harris bumper stickers, 1,000 Hillary bumper stickers, and no Trump bumper stickers, even though there's a significant amount of people who voted for Trump. So it's kind of interesting that they don't have a mirror and sort of look at themselves and go, yes, I'm progressive, and yes, I will vote progressive on all these cases, even if it makes me look like an idiot, but I don't like the optics of it. Circling back to Stephanopoulos, like I should at least look like an umpire. Stephanopoulos' job is to look like an umpire. Her job is to look like an umpire. And when you go out and do these kinds of large public displays, then we're going to know your politics and you're not going to look like an umpire anymore. Number one. Number two, I think Broadway is really the epicenter, the nougat inside the candy bar of the progressive movement. You know, you say college campuses and college faculty, Hollywood, things like that. But Broadway is probably the purest, uncut, unstepped on progressivism on the planet, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I used to love it. When I grew up going to Broadway when I was younger, it wasn't like this. And I know it's woke, and I know it's always been very gay. That's just different. That's different. There's a reason more and more groups are going LGB, and breaking up with the T, because they see the T as a group that wants to perform conversion therapy on young gay boys, to say you're not actually gay, you're actually a girl, a straight girl. And so, like, it's very dicey now for them to be embracing the T so heartily. In fact, we went to a play not long ago, and one of the actors in the play noticed me sitting there, and I had done a post on my Instagram celebrating the show, and one of the actors responded saying, "Oh, it was great to see you there. You know, you should have come backstage and have said hello." And then these trans people got on there like, "We will cancel you. You like her. You said something nice." Like, they're so over the top now. And even if you try to go there and say, "All right, I'm going to ignore these far left extremists who are trying to trans little boys," they make it impossible. They're everywhere. Every other role is a trans role now, far more representative than is in society. And to the point where it's like fine for a Supreme Court justice. They've hijacked girl empowerment plays to make them about boy empowerment, which is what a trans, quote, woman is. And she's fine. This is the same person who couldn't tell us what a woman is, Adam.
Well, I mean, she's not a bright woman. I think she's probably there mostly due to affirmative action. Sotomayor's there mostly because of affirmative action, and she's a dope too. And then there's Kamala Harris. So that entire affirmative action DEI hire thing has completely and utterly backfired because they're not electing and or hiring people that are up to the job. And I include her in that group. Like I said, Sotomayor is a full-blown idiot. I mean, she's an idiot. I mean, it's insane that she's on the Supreme Court. Remember when the whole COVID thing came down and they were talking about mandatory vaccinations, and she's like, there's 10 million kids on ventilators right now. She's a dope. And Kamala Harris is a dope too. And maybe they should learn their lesson with their DEI affirmative action appointments. Get qualified people and then do it.
And Sonia Sotomayor was the one who 2 weeks ago, when that case about whether these states are allowed to ban puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for kids went up, she was like, oh, come on, there are side effects from an aspirin too. There are risks, as if taking an aspirin is the same as puberty blockers into cross-sex hormones for a 10 to 12-year-old.
Well, the fact that she would consider letting those words pass her lips means she's a dope. Smart people would never say that out loud. Smart people think, oh, what if and then they go, oh no, I'm not going to say that. I'll sound like a dope. And so she is a dope, which is crazy, but it's hurting the movement is what I'm saying.
Well, and there's certain narratives that are not to be allowed or ever deemed acceptable. And the thought that we are transing children who are actually fine in their sexed body, but just going through some sort of unrelated trauma, you know, whether they've been sexually abused or they've had a divorce in the family or they've been bullied, you're not allowed to go there. They consider that conversion therapy of a trans kid. So, you know, there are like these narratives that you're not allowed. And one of the narratives that's prohibited outside of the trans lane is that we have a Venezuelan gang migrant crime problem in Aurora, Colorado, right? This came up a lot during the campaign, and back and forth between the left and the right on whether there really are gangs of Venezuelan illegals in Aurora, Colorado, taking over apartment complexes. You remember it led, to this notable exchange between Martha Raddatz and J.D. Vance when he went on her show, and she was like, it's fine. And he was like, hello, listen.
So do you support Donald Trump making those claims that the Republican mayor says were grossly exaggerated?
President Trump was actually in Aurora, Colorado, talking to people on the ground. And what we're hearing, of course, Martha, is that people are terrified by what has happened with some of these Venezuelan gangs.
Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened. Martha, I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border. Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs.
Okay, let's just end that with they did not invade or take over the city, as Donald Trump said. I want to move on to
just a few apartment complexes, no big deal.
A few apartment complexes that the mayor did not seem was invading the entire city.
She lives in a multi-million-dollar estate, which we put on the screen before. Just a quick follow-up. Okay, so here was Trump on NBC last week. Okay, we're still at it, the mainstream media, trying to say these are lies.
Megyn?
What?
Did you see Martha calling balls and strikes out there?
Yeah.
Because I didn't. That didn't seem like an umpire to me. That seemed like a fan who got behind the plate. Yes.
That's right.
Go ahead.
And so Trump just last week goes on Kristen Welker's Meet the Press, and listen what happened.
You've talked about prioritizing people who have criminal histories.
Correct.
But is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it. And it's a It's a very tough thing to do.
You're saying, yes, you're going to focus on the people with criminal histories, but everyone who's here illegally has to go.
I'm saying this. We have to get the criminals out of our country. And you see what they've done in Colorado and other places. They're literally taking over apartment complexes and doing it with impunity. They don't care. They just are, they're in the real estate business.
You know, the local police say that is not the case in Colorado.
Oh, it's totally the case.
Okay. We knew he was telling the truth. We knew J.D. Vance was telling the truth. And guess what? Guess what just happened? 14 detained in armed Aurora, Colorado home invasion are likely illegal Venezuelan gang members, according to local police. I mean, days after that exchange with NBC, where she knew, it's not like, oh, well, it happened after. No, it's been happening. The mainstream media will not admit it, Adam.
Yeah. Well, was she calling balls and strikes? I mean, these weren't MSNBC pundits or CNN. This is ABC. This is why we cannot turn to ABC for information. You just saw 3, starting with Stephanopoulos, of their leading news journalists, anchors.
Welker's NBC.
I'm sorry, NBC. But mainstream.
So they're but 2 of the main 3.
Broadcasts. Yes. Okay. So we no longer have to turn there for news. Maybe news about an earthquake in Nicaragua, but certainly nothing to do with Trump. Okay. So that's established. They did that to themselves. I don't know why they fell on their own sword that way, but they destroyed their own brand. And it's sad. And they keep looking around going, well, you know, Trump says fake news. Why don't people listen to us? People don't listen to you because you've been wrong and lying about everything for a decade. And we're done. We hit a saturation point. All right. As far as this stuff goes, whatever it is, it all turns out to be true. You know, Hunter Biden's laptop or ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, or where did COVID come from? Did it come from a lab or did it come from a wet market? Well, la-di-da. Guess what? Came from a lab. You know, do masks work? Herd immunity, whatever, vaccination efficacy, it all. Every single story ends up going the way that the conspiracy theorists or Trump or J.D. Vance or whomever spoke about, you spoke about, I spoke about. It all ends up going that way. So surprise, surprise, this will be one more log on the fire of stuff we talked about that was poo-pooed and brushed off as hysteria to try to win election, number one. Number two, I love when they make this argument where they go, and J.D. Vance made it as well, I've made it many times, where they go, yes, the young female jogger was killed by the illegal gangbanger who should have been deported, but they commit crime at a much lesser rate than the average. All right, but tell that to the parents of the chick who was jogging, like a lesser rate. It should be 0, idiots. The person shouldn't be in the goddamn country. The person who was jogging should still be alive. There should be 0 Venezuelan gangbangers in Aurora, Colorado. It's not a big problem. Yeah, it should be 0, idiots.
Yeah, this is the exchange I had with Bill Maher when I went on his show, too. He was like, oh, like Americans don't commit crime? I'm like, we have to take them. We can't kick the Americans out. We can put them in jail. We can't kick them out. Why are we having to deal with the Venezuelan illegals committing these kinds of crimes? And listen to the one that I just gave you the headline of. This is at a group of apartments, again, where we were told by the mainstream media they had not taken over. And here's the story. They kidnapped 2 victims, a male and a female, and assaulted them. 13 to 15 gang members, mostly males, some females, entered an apartment where 2 people were inside. They took the migrant victims to another apartment at the same location where the victims were threatened and bound, pistol whipped, beaten, and stabbed. Even the local police chief saying, yeah, sounds like torture to me. And then they described this as follows. The Aurora police chief, Todd Chamberlain, on Tuesday described a bit of the crimes. Top 5.
Victims, it was a male and a female. They were accosted by approximately 13 to 15 armed individuals. Again, they were pistol whipped, they were beat, they were mistreated. One of the male was actually stabbed. He had a stab wound. So does that fall in the category of torture for me? Yeah, it does. And I can guarantee you, I will give you my expertise and my knowledge of what I believe. This is without question a gang incident. There are Venezuelans involved. So again, there is a high assumption that they may be affiliated with the TDA gang. Again, we have a gang problem in Aurora, without question. We have 25-some gangs like every major city does. We have a number of gang members. And it's not just up in that area. It's not just in that complex. It's throughout the entire city of Aurora.
I'm just like, do you think Martha Raddatz or Kristen Welker will be playing this story and that soundbite? It's just, people are being, I don't know, are they being misled? I think Democrats are being misled. I think they believe these sources still, and they still are scratching their heads like, I don't get it. Morning Joe told me that she was going to win and also Joe Biden was fine.
Yeah. The Kristen Welker clip that's fun to go back in the Wayback Machine and look at is when Trump was debating Biden and he brought up Russia, and he was saying that, his son took money from Ukraine, and that heated exchange where Biden was saying, me, you took money from Ukraine, your son, I never did anything. We have 51 intelligence experts. Kristen Welker's trying to moderate, and she keeps yelling, can we get back to race? Can we get back to the subject of race? It's the funniest thing ever. It's like a perfect time capsule. Like, these guys are arguing about the biggest story of the year. And she's like, what about race, sir? Let's talk about what happened to race. Can we get back to arguing about race? Could you two old white guys get back to arguing about race, please? It's so funny to hear her yelling about race in the background. It's perfect. It's like, yeah, all right, so she's argue about.
Another person obsessed with race is this Representative Jasmine Crockett, who is constantly playing the race card, accusing everybody of racism on Capitol Hill. Here she is talking about what the gang problem is to her. Take a listen.
He said that we've got these cities and these towns that are being overrun by gangs and the crime out of control. I absolutely agree with that. And guess what? It's the MAGA gang. It is the white supremacists that have decided to descend upon places such as Springfield, Ohio. The problems are him and his minions. The problems aren't the people that have come to make our economy stronger. I agree that there are problems in our communities, but usually it's some white supremacists on the other side.
She's from Texas. Texas getting bluer and bluer. But that's their representative out there spewing that nonsense in response to Trump's original claim back at the debate.
Well, there's something that's very dangerous, which is they ran on race. So the Democrats are all, they race hustle and they run on race, right? So what they do is they lay something down. They go, well, this country was founded by racists and it's embedded in our DNA and blah, blah, blah. And Biden, who didn't turn out to be a moderate at all, he turned out to be another race hustler, started immediately with the white supremacies, the biggest problem this country faces. And he got Wray from the FBI and Garland from the DOJ. And he got everybody coached up on working the white supremacy as a big problem angle, which is fine. They're just hustling and lying and agitating black people and people of color and white people and everybody in the nation as well, it should be a dereliction of duty, but fine. They're bad people with no moral compass. But the real problem is once you make the proclamation that white supremacy is the biggest problem this country faces, then you better go find some white supremacy. And that's what happened with January 6th. That's what happened with all these FBI raids on, somebody was, protesting an abortion clinic 30 feet away with his son. They had to create numbers and statistics to back up their false assertions about white supremacy. And that's when it gets dangerous, because that's when citizens start getting locked up so that they can have a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I mean, wow. Speaking of the Duke lacrosse case, right? I mean, that's right on point with what just happened this week with Crystal Mangum finally admitting she made the whole thing up. I mean, I don't know. Do you think they were having a debate about this on the editors this week? the National Review podcast, which I love. And they were asking, do you think the Duke lacrosse case would have unfolded the same way today as it did back in 2006? Would we be more circumspect about this woman's allegations in 2024, almost 25 America? Or would the media have run with it tenfold and even more egregiously than it did?
I think you and I and folks like us would have been considerate about it and give it some thought. But I don't think the ladies from The View have moved a millimeter since, Kyle Rittenhouse or Jussie Smollett or whatever they got wrong. They get something wrong every single week. I don't think they would have moved. I don't think the aforementioned anchors we just saw from the two networks would have backed off this thing. I don't think the Al Sharptons or even the Obamas or the Michelle Obamas or the Oprahs or the Hollywood types, the race hustlers out there, I don't think any of them would have acted any differently. They don't learn lessons. That's part of why the reason they make the same mistakes over and over again is because they never learn from their last mistake. Mm-hmm. They sailed right through COVID. Never tapped the brakes, never looked around, never thought, what did I get wrong? What can I take ownership? What do I owe someone an apology for? None of them have a rearview mirror. They sailed through 4 years of being wrong about COVID and never even looked back.
The ladies of The View are among those who are just baffled at the right-wing backlash to Caitlin Clark coming out and saying, when nominated or honored as Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year, I do want to acknowledge my white privilege and point out that what would really be nice is for the black women on whose backs this league was built to be spotlighted and elevated. They don't get why, especially post the Trump election, many of us saw that as an absurd statement for her to be asserting her white privilege as opposed to her athletic accomplishment in getting this honor. They don't get it, Adam. They're not going to get it, no matter how many times Trump or a Trump accolade wins an election, national or state, etc.
Yeah. Well, I got news for the ladies. Caitlin Clark is a great athlete, but the greatest female athlete, and I'm including Serena and Venus and all the great ones, the greatest female athlete of all time is Caitlyn Jenner. So sorry, ladies. The dude is the greatest female athlete of all time, ladies. Sorry. I don't want to ruin your week.
He can crush all of us. Oh, can I tell you something? Speaking of he, and I like Caitlin, actually. And I mean him, no disrespect by using he. He knows why I do it. But there was just an unbelievable ruling out of your state. You won't be surprised to learn. It's so annoying. There was a judge out there. Okay, hold on. A judge in California. I got to back up just to explain what happened. A man who had never said he was secretly a woman, was feeling like a woman inside, until he was convicted and sent to prison for a long, long time. Then suddenly he decides, when he hears that they've changed the rules in California such that men who say they're female can go into women's prisons. I'm trans. Well, he gets transferred to a woman's prison. And guess what he does? He rapes somebody. He allegedly rapes a female prisoner. And now he's in the middle of a trial for that crime. He is in the middle of being tried for that crime. Well, guess what? Here's what happened. This is according to the Women's Liberation Front, which is attending the trial and documenting what's happening. The California DA for this area, Eric Dutemple, gets into court and argues this man raped this female prisoner. It's deeply wrong, blah, blah, blah. And the prisoner objects, saying he needs to refer to me as a she and her. The male prisoner who committed the rape. I'm she, her. The judge pauses the proceedings to take it under consideration. Well, guess what? Yesterday, the judge made a final decision, or yesterday, the day before. And the decision is that the prosecutor must refer to the defendant, male rapist, as a she, her during the trial, which we believe is a first for a criminal case. This is unbelievable. The prosecutor has to stand up in front of the jury. This is him. This is our woman. This is she, her. Mm-hmm. The prosecutor has to say, she raped the female inmate. What in the actual F, Adam?
You know, it's an interesting ploy, and it happens. It's happened a few times, and it's actually kind of effective because there was a trial or a crime out here in Los Angeles, and you probably remember it. It's probably about 5 years ago now, where a young, 8 or 9 year old girl went to a bathroom at a Denny's, and then a male went in and raped, sexually assaulted the kid, and then decided to become a he, she, her, was talking to his dad over a prison phone, laughing, saying he's gaming the system, so on and so forth. That was a few years ago. But when I was reading the article and the news story about it in the Los Angeles Times, because the Los Angeles Times is stupid and woke and has to go with the pronouns and everything. So the story and the pronouns were like they, okay? So imagine you're reading a story. The story is an 8-year-old girl goes into a bathroom at a restaurant, and a 25-year-old male goes into the bathroom and rapes the 8-year-old in the bathroom. That's the story. But when you're reading the article, it says, a minor went to the bathroom, then they went into the bathroom after her, and then they pulled out her penis, and then she and they raped. And after reading it for 5 minutes, you just go, I don't even know I don't even know what's going on. Leave him alone. I'm moving on. I can't figure this out. They went in? No, she. Wait a minute. She raped? Was it a gang rape? Was it? No, it was she. She raped the other girl? It's like, perfect. It's perfect. The jury just goes, I give up. I don't know. I don't know what this is anymore. And
Look
it worked.
This picture of this man.
It's effective.
This picture of this man insisting and succeeding in being called she, her in court was taken, what is it, Deb? March? April? This was last April. This is not like 10 years ago before the transition. This is a man working the system, and those idiots in California are allowing it. They couldn't give two shits about the female prisoners in California. Yes. They don't care. It's absolutely outrageous. And by the way, that judge's order should be appealed. It's unconstitutional. You cannot force speech like this. You cannot force this compromise of the victim's rights by confusing the jury in this way. I don't think this is going to be, they should appeal it. This should not be allowed. Okay, a couple other things I want to get to. Have you been following the drones?
I have my eye in the sky, but I do not claim to have any special information on the drones.
Well, everybody in the Northeast is talking about it because everyone's seeing them. They're everywhere. And first we were told we weren't. And then we were told, oh, it's nothing. And then we were told, oh, it's just the same amount of drones that are always out there. Like you're inventing it in your head. You've heard the story and now you're seeing what's not there. Totally untrue. That's just not true. Then yesterday, finally, the Pentagon and others came out and said, oh, it's like a collection of, it's like hobbyists, commercial fixed wing aircraft, and also law enforcement. Law enforcement, like they just drop it in there, like we know that's what it appears to be. It could be federal law enforcement, it could be CIA, it could be FBI, it could be Pentagon. That's all law enforcement. And now the speculation is, of course, what are they doing up there? What are law enforcement drones looking for? And here is New Jersey Mayor of Bellevue, Michael Melhan, with some new information. SOT 12.
We also know that we have drones that are flying in a grid-like pattern. In my opinion, they're looking for something. What might they be looking for? Well, potentially, we're aware of a threat that came in through Port Newark. Maybe that's radioactive material. There was and there is an alert that's out right now that radioactive material in New Jersey has gone missing on December 2nd. It was a shipment. It arrived at its destination. The container was damaged and was empty. So potentially we're looking for that.
Stop right there, Mayor, because that's very important information. And that came from a credible source.
That came from the U.S. government.
And so it's missing?
Missing.
And they think it's in New Jersey, or it could be anywhere?
It was lost in New Jersey, in transit. And again, this is just an example of what I think that we're sniffing for.
Okay. Like we've lost radioactive. This is like a scene out of Back to the Future, Adam. Like, remember Doc stole a whole thing of plutonium to make the DeLorean run? Where's our radioactive material? And is that what the drones are looking for? We don't know, but this is why people are freaked out.
Well, to me, it speaks to a larger picture and a huge problem with the current time we're living in, and especially the Biden administration. If you heard Biden comment on the drones, or Mayorkas comment on the drones, or Kamala Harris comment on the drones, or Karine Jean-Pierre comment on the drones, would you believe one word that came out of their mouth?
No.
Okay, so that's a problem. Everybody I've spoke to, I go, what do you think? And what if Biden came out and gave a presser on the drones? Would you believe any of it? Or anyone from the FBI, or anyone from the CIA, or like I said, Mayorkas or Homeland Security, whatever, and they all go, no, I wouldn't believe anything they said. Why should we? And it's like, well, that's kind of a weird testimonial. You know what I mean? That's a weird position to be in the United States of America. I've been here for a while. I remember a day when if the president came out, made a comment or a statement about it, or the director of Homeland Security or FBI or DOJ or whomever, CIA, I would tend to believe them. I no longer believe anything they say. I wouldn't believe anything Biden says or that comes out of the Biden administration. I don't think he gets enough credit for being a liar.
Yeah, enough credit. Yeah. Wait, let me show you back to back Biden on the drones on Tuesday and Trump on the drones on Monday. Watch this.
What's the explanation for all those drones over New Jersey? What's behind all of that?
Nothing nefarious, apparently. But they're checking it all out. I think it's just one. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got it. Everybody's wanting to get in the deal.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, I mean, they happen to be over Bedminster.
Will you shoot them down?
They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Such a difference. For those who couldn't hear Biden, what he said was nothing nefarious, apparently, but they're checking it all out. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. I think one started and they all got everybody's want to get in the deal. And then there was Trump. They know, and they should just tell people.
Remember 10 minutes ago when everyone was explaining to us the adults are back in charge and now we have integrity and transparency. We're going to have full transparency. How insane is the last 4 years been in terms of the adults and transparency? I mean, he just, if I said to Joe Biden, how do you like your eggs? And he said, sunny side up, I'd just yell liar.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he knows. That's the question.
I don't think he knows
at this
either.
point.
You're right.
At this point, runny, I don't know, like very soft-boiled. I mentioned the top of the show. There's a New York Times article called "A Weary Biden Heads for the Exit." They talk about how he's falling asleep at his international events. He went to some museum. They had to bring the exhibits out to him. As he walked away from one event, everybody there cowered in fear that he was going to tumble over. And they say it's hard to imagine that he seriously thought he could do the world's most stressful job for another 4 years. A lie the New York Times was peddling just months ago, Adam. But now it's really hard to imagine how he thought he could do it.
Yeah, well, the New York Times not calling balls and strikes, so we don't have to listen to them either. But yeah, I just don't feel like Biden, it's funny because we're focusing on Biden being sort of out of it and deteriorating mentally, just like they wanted us to focus on Hunter Biden. Like, this guy had a substance abuse problem. This guy beat his problem, but he had demons. It's like, no, he was a grifter and a thief. And Biden is corrupt and a thief. Yeah, he also has dementia. And yeah, his son also loved crack. But first and foremost, they were thieves and grifters who were trading on the Biden name and enriching themselves. So don't lose focus of that fact.
This shall be the legacy. Adam Carolla, always great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Always great to see you, Megyn.
All right, up next, we stay out on the left coast with Justine Bateman. Don't go away. You know how much my family and I love our dogs, right? Focus a lot of attention on Strudwick in particular. These dogs have a great life. They are lucky, but some dogs aren't. And this is why I'm so glad to tell you about Delta Rescue. It's the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They have rescued thousands of dogs, plus cats and horses too. They provide all the animals with shelter, safety, and most of all, love. And they've been doing it now for more than 45 years. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions to stay open, and giving can bring tax benefits too. Speak with your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping animals in need, and check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more. We love our Thunder and Strudwick, but with love for other dogs who need care and attention and shelter to find those things too. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. And now we turn to someone I cannot wait to talk to. Here with me today, filmmaker and author Justine Bateman. Justine joined me way back in 2021 in episode 81, which you should definitely go back and check out. We were just babies back then on this show, and she's been crushing it on social media since then, especially as of late, saying how many of us feel after the seismic 2024 election. But in her case, it's especially brave because she is a Hollywood person, and you know how it is to be honest about politics out there. She's also been sounding the alarm about the dangers of AI, which we discussed yesterday with guest Tristan Harris. You should go back and listen to that if you haven't heard it. Very scary story about something called character AI. Justine, welcome back to the show.
Hi, good to see you again.
Oh, great to see you too. So we'll get to the AI stuff because it's really, really interesting. But how do you feel now? Here we are 1 month and a couple of weeks post the November 5th seismic change in America. And I don't know. I mean, I know you don't say who you vote for, but how are you feeling about the future?
I think this is great. It was long overdue. Just that mob mentality momentum that's necessary to maintain an atmosphere where your job can be destroyed, your social standing can be destroyed, your children's lives at their school can be destroyed. That momentum ended with the very large national poll of what people want, which is our national presidential election, kind of set the stage for that being over. And that's the kind of momentum you need for things like if people remember the McCarthy trials, the HUAC trials, the blacklisting in the 50s, the witch burning of the 1600s, even things like tulip mania, also of the 1600s. If you don't have that momentum, you don't have the structure you need to ruin people's lives. So that's over.
How did we get sucked into it so fully?
I think it started with the Me Too movement. And I did an essay on this on my Substack, where Me Too, I think if you're somebody who's prone to feel left out, this is the worst era for you to be in, because you know if you're left out. In prior eras, you would know if you were left out in your small group, your town maybe, your work environment, your school. But now it's like, you know if you're left out of the entire world, because what you posted on social media didn't get any likes, or you're not part of the hashtag. And so you can see the trending topics, and you can see that you are not part of it. And I think that was true for a lot of women when they saw the Me Too hashtag trending, and all these women in the very unfortunate and not enviable situation of having been victims of criminal sexual assault. But it was a big topic, and I think a lot of women felt left out. And then they started kind of lowering the bar to what qualifies for that. And it became sort of the me too movement. And also we started glorifying, there was a lot of attention on people who have PTSD, or, maybe from having been a victim of sexual assault or other reasons. And there was focus on that too. And so people wanted to be part of that as well. They wanted to, they kind of scrambled within themselves to see, like, well, can't I qualify somehow? Don't I have some sort of trauma somehow? And then they started wearing it on their, like, almost on a Girl Scout satch, little badges. And you could see it on their profiles. I'm a this, I'm a that, and they started sort of highlighting all the ways that they could qualify for invisible disabilities or me too. And then it became a sacred cow. I think it's that, Megyn. Like, as soon as something becomes a sacred cow, you're screwed. And then it became like, you can't touch that. You can't touch anything to do with sexual assault. You can't touch anything to do with, you can't question anybody. You can't, well, look at the animals. I saw a video of somebody putting a Great Dane on an airplane. That's their emotional support dog.
Yes, it's so ridiculous.
I mean, and people were afraid to push back because it was so easy on social media. There was that momentum, right? It was so easy on social media to destroy your career, get you fired. And for anyone who says that's not true, you're either kidding yourself or you're just kidding yourself. It's childish to say that wasn't true. I know people for whom that's true. So it absolutely happened. And
okay, let me ask you this, because I look back at the beginning of the Me Too movement, and in the beginning, I think there were some noble moments. I am thrilled that Harvey Weinstein's no longer in power, that Les Moonves is no longer in power. Some real villains, at least with respect to the way they treated women, went down. And I loved that. I think that's worth celebrating, because we had been living in an era in which they had total control, and women really did kind of have to go along to get along or just leave the industry, Yeah. And then I really think like the pivotal moment was Kavanaugh, where they tried to Kavanaugh, it's a verb now to be Kavanaugh'd, right? We're like, he's an alleged gang rapist and he's been on the federal bench for all these years. We never knew. And, who's pushing those claims? Oh, it's Michael Avenatti, who would wind up in prison himself, right, for defrauding his own clients and being a professional liar and thief. So that was pivotal. But you're right, because there was a jump the shark moment. And I remember being on the set at NBC where I talked to a lot of these women. And there was one young woman who sat there, and her complaint was that her boss was complimenting how nice she looked in her dress. Yeah. And I remember saying to her, come on, like, what? And she was very defensive of how, no, like, it's inappropriate. I just don't know how, like, in the same way, like Black Lives Matter, yes, are there some incidents where we have some bad cops who do some very bad things? Of course. So then this momentum starts, but we just overcorrect everything to the point of completely bastardizing the movements. And there's a large segment of the population that when the movement breaks, it reaches the point of absurdity because it's been so exploited. They cannot get off the train. They cannot admit that something that once may have had a noble goal or, taken down a true villain here or there is no longer admirable is no longer characterized with valor of any kind, is no longer about standing up for anybody who's downtrodden, but really more about being a bully and being a movement that gets used for someone's ulterior motives.
Yeah, but for those people who were taking advantage of it, that was always true. So imagine where were those people before they decided they were going to join these hashtags, even though they didn't qualify? What was going on in their lives? What kind of people were they? And I would hazard a guess that they were lost. They didn't know what they were going to do with their lives. They felt like they were of no consequence. They felt like they were not important. They felt like they had nobody was going to listen to them about anything. And maybe they were people who had not looked within themselves at their own basket of skills and talents that I believe every single person is born with. And they haven't bothered to develop any of those. So you take these people and this attention that they got through lowering the bar to qualify for these hashtags, they were able to use it almost like a drug. So now you have a bunch of addicts, if you will, and their drug has been removed from them. So they are flailing. And now you see them grabbing onto things like, let's go after all these other CEOs. And I'm like, okay.
Yes.
You talk about absurd, like it's becoming even more absurd because just like a junkie, you take away their drug, or an alcoholic or an anorexic or a compulsive overeater, like you name it, a workaholic, a sexaholic, anything. You take the drug away from them before they've hit bottom, and you're going to have something that's beyond a panic attack. And that's what a lot of people are experiencing now, because what it means is they will have to go back, pick up where they left off before they hitch their wagon to these hashtags. They're going to have to go back there. I think it's a great opportunity for them. They're going to have to go back to that point where they left off and start developing their own basket of skills and talents. And I think if they do that and put in that work, they will see that they do have value. They do have a skill set that is of value in society. So I'm excited for them, but it's going to be uncomfortable for them right now.
It's going to take a while. That is such an interesting and apt point. I hadn't even considered that this weird cult status of this accused shooter, Luigi Mangione, who very much appears to have killed Brian Thompson, a United Healthcare CEO, and is accused of that it's related to this cult mindset.
Reaction, right?
Yeah.
Their reaction.
They're looking for a new cause. Let me just give you a number, and then I'll give it back to you. We talked yesterday about a poll that showed 41% of 18 to 29-year-olds, 41% approve of what Luigi did, allegedly, this murder, approve. Only 40% of that cohort says they disapprove. So basically tied. But the fact that it's tied on approve, disapprove, this murder of just his only sin was being the CEO of United Healthcare is astonishing. And then here's more. This is Poll Tracker pointing out today, favorability of Luigi by age, 18 to 29, favorable opinion of him, 39% of that cohort has a favorable opinion, 30% unfavorable. 30 to 44-year-olds, unfavorable, 29, favorable, 28. So it's basically tied for 30 to 44-year-olds on whether they approve of this guy. And then as you get older, it goes down. Unfavorable within the 45 to 64, us Gen Xers, 49% unfavorable, favorable 14, 65 and up, unfavorable 63, favorable 5. But unbelievable, Justine.
Well, I think you're seeing a lot of cognitive dissonance with him and also this teenage girl who did this shooting recently, I forget, in Wisconsin. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so cognitive dissonance is interesting. It's, where you can't hold two different ideas in your head at the same time. So people are going, oh, well, somebody murdered somebody and, he's well off. Oh, and he's educated. And there's nothing in his social media that seems to indicate that he's insane or holds ideas that are in opposition of their positions. And do you see, like, he doesn't fit into the category that they expect, or that anybody really expects? Who expects that? And this school shooter, aren't we used to the school shooters being, I don't know, radicalized young men? Or maybe I'm speaking that incorrectly. I mean, isn't that
No, it's 19 to 26-year-old men.
But now you have a young woman, teenager, who's railing against misogyny. You see, so these two it's an interesting timing for them. They're both murderers. That's it. A murderer. They're both murderers. Neither one of them doing it out of self-defense. So in society, as far as I'm concerned, that is abhorrent and not to be, it's unacceptable in our society. You can't have a society, a cohesive society, if that kind of thing is acceptable, obviously. But I think, what I said, I think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance for many, many people that these two killers are the types of people that they are.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think it relates to, like, we're kind of talking about the rise of wokeism too, the explosion of wokeism. And I think they're directly related to the loss of a national identity, a patriotic thread that binds us together. You know, when we grew up, that was instilled in the classroom. You'd stand up every morning and say the pledge. You know, I mean, we used to sing "My Country 'Tis of Thee" in my class in the mornings. And that's gone. And so is religion in the public square, which was absolutely one of the things that we saw the country founded on. And it's been erased and erased and erased and replaced with active school shooter drills. And there's a search for meaning.
Yeah. And be interesting to see where that started. I really liked doing the Pledge of Allegiance when I was a kid. I'm sorry to hear I know that's not been a part of a regular school mornings for a while now, and that's too bad. I'm not opposed to religion not being in schools, or you didn't say schools, you said the town square.
Public square.
You know, it's interesting, the spirituality, the decline, you know, when you look, there's a chart, right? The decline is really sharp, the fall off. I don't know when the sort of steep descent begins. But maybe, Megyn, it has to do with the kind of flattening of culture that the internet, public-facing internet introduced. And look, there's a lot of great things about the internet. And one of the consequences, though, was a flattening of culture, a flattening of time, too. Like, imagine some interview that I did in 1987. You could find in a magazine, a 1987 issue of a magazine, and it's in context. You see other people that were, you know, popular enough at the time to be interviewed. You see ads from that time, news that was happening at that time, whatever. But now you see an interview of me from 1987 online. There's no context. It's as if I said it yesterday. Or, you know, oftentimes these interviews and articles don't have any dates on them at all. So there's that aspect of it as far as news, as far as what is happening. And then you also have just this almost a monoculture of everybody knowing what everybody's doing all at once. You no longer had these pockets, sort of, not an incubator, but an area in which, and a time and a space where something could develop and then emerge. You remember when we were kids, something, if you were living in LA, there would be like some fashion like bell bottoms or something like this. And then you'd go visit your cousins in Wisconsin or Utah or something. And they're like, what are you wearing? And then 3 or 4 years later, that would be a trend there. So all of that went away with the internet because everything's so immediate. So,
and also, I think also raunchier. Yeah. Like, you know, it used to be the kids were stealing the Playboys out of their dad's, you know, trunk at the foot of the bed. And now it's like graphic XXX porn available, you know, at the click of a button on the devices. And it's ubiquitous. I mean, I just had a guy on the show last week who I love named Dr. Leonard Sachs. He's a parenting expert. He's MD, PhD, went to MIT, only takes into account longitudinal, focus group studies in giving his feedback, so he's not like a feelings type guy. He looks at actual data and studies of like large cohorts of children to figure out what's what. And he was saying parents need to remain the primary influence in their children's life in 2024 America through age 18. 18. I said, what are you talking about? In the 70s, we had no parents. There were no parents anywhere, and we turned out fine. You could argue we turned out better than the current generations are looking to turn out based on some of the things you discussed. And he said it was different then because the culture would step in to fill some of the void. And the culture was family ties, shows with a message, shows with two parents, shows like Little House on the Prairie, shows like the Waltons, music had a more positive message back then. You didn't turn it on and hear, as he always points out, the wet ass P word song, it was just very different.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just mean that song is like absolutely bizarre to me.
Yeah, it's disgusting. But I mean, you lived it. You were and remain. This is how we all came to know and love you, a cultural icon because of you. You were part of that messaging. And somehow we lost it. And I do think the internet was a big part in destroying it.
Well, yeah, part of it. But I think of it this way. When you were interacting with your peers before the internet, you had real world consequences. You found out that behaving in a particular way got you uninvited to the next party. Mm-hmm. You were shunned in certain arenas, but there's opportunity to like earn your way back into a group or something, right? I mean, it was it was more tribal like that, right?
It was just.
But then when the internet was introduced, social media, you could actually get attention, which is not the same thing as approval. You could get attention online for behavior, and also couple that with, and this preceded the internet and social media by a bit, reality shows. So I always think back to the first reality show that I recall, which was Real World on MTV. And there was a guy on there named Puck. And Puck misbehaved. I mean, that's his name. So
I remember him.
If anybody, there's a Shakespearean play with Puck in it.
Yeah.
It's a little.
What is it? Midsummer Night's Dream? What is it?
Midsummer Night's Dream. Yeah, a little mischief maker.
Yeah.
So he was a real pain in the ass, but people were so enthralled with the idea that somebody was behaving like that and nothing was really happening to him. And so that became a trend on reality shows. The worst behavior got rewarded with attention and money and whatever else. So I think people saw these two things, and then that sort of tribal consequence of being a poor addition to a party or something was diluted. I think that has something to do with it.
I'm thinking about Omarosa right now on The Apprentice.
Yeah, that was another one. Yeah.
Just like Puck, she kept getting brought back for the MVP edition and then, the All-Star edition and I'm one of the people who loved to watch her bad behavior on that show. It was highly entertaining, but it has a different effect on a strong personality watching it for mild entertainment in the same way the Real Housewives does, versus someone who's impressionable and looking to make a name for themselves or doesn't have that strong sort of sense of self, the strong id, and is looking to fill it up with something, that void.
Yeah. I mean, when you're younger, you look around, you're like, you're new to society, especially as a little kid, right? What do people value? There's a sociologist named René Girard who has this theory called mimetic desire. His theory is that nobody wants anything when they're born except the core need and desire to survive. When they look around and they see what other people are desiring who've been here longer, and then they just sort of mimic their desire. They go, oh, everybody wants that car. Okay, then I want it too, because how else are you going to, you look around at the society that exists to see how you can, to see what's valued in order to not only fit in, but to be of value in that society as well. And then that does come back to somebody's sense of surviving, right? So it's a shame little kids then they looked at that reality, that poor reality show behavior. They look at how people behave online. They look at even Trump's behavior, looked at it objectively in 2016, changed the way he was criticizing people, that I was not in favor of, frankly, but that changed political behavior. Do you notice? After that, it not only changed political behavior. I mean, how many politicians had online accounts at that point, had Twitter account, when it was Twitter or Facebook accounts or anything. And after that, and not only did it change political behavior, but the 24-hour news cycle, always needing a talking head, all the podcasts that need guests, all of this, needing people to be online. Like there's an endless amount of air that needs to be filled with people's presence. And then the bad behavior being kind of awarded. I think it has attracted a certain type of politician now. Remember when we first saw C-SPAN in the early 80s or whatever it was? And we look at this and go, the first time we saw like what on TV, like what was going on in the House or the Senate, and we just went, oh my God, it's so boring. Like, how do they stay awake? These people are so dull. What they have to do all day is so dull. And that's not the case anymore. And I think it's attracted people. I think we should bring back the boring politicians, like who just they're doing their job.
It's too late for that.
I know,
I don't think
it's attracted this type that wants to be on camera all the time, and it's on both sides of the whatever aisle. I mean, AOC.
No, I call AOC a congressional Kardashian. That's what she seems like to me. She just wants to get famous and build her socials while she's in there, and then I guess parlay that into some sort of whatever. I don't know what her long-term plan is. I don't really care. But I do think, because I thought about Trump a lot. He spent his life in the public eye. He definitely, attention is his oxygen. But the thing about Trump that's been interesting is, yes, he was more crude. One of the reasons why he got such a negative reaction when he first burst onto the political scene in 15-16 was, yes, he was saying things that the Republican Party considered anathema. Tariffs, that wasn't their thing. Not being, provably pro-life, that was a problem for them. There are a lot of others, more isolationist than the Republican Party, which was much more neocon-y for many, many years. But really what was driving Republicans and Americans nuts about Trump in the beginning, many of them, was he was crude, to your point. Like, he did not sound like Ronald Reagan, the great orator, the great communicator, when he was on camera. Now, there are lots of reports of how Reagan spoke off camera that are pretty controversial, but on camera, on the national stage, Trump sounded very crude many times. And so it was jarring. But then he helped expose some of these other politicians and what they've been doing behind the scenes, right? That is awful. You think about, just look at Joe Biden, how he's misused the Justice Department against his political opponent. I mean, he's also crude on camera too, but not in this particular way. So my point is simply, Trump was just the first one to sort of wear it on his sleeve, but behind the scenes behaved pretty well. Whereas so many of these other politicians knew exactly how to play it in front of the camera, but behind the scenes were complete and total douchebags.
Yeah, could be. I think though there, as far as like people ascribing to poor behavior, generally speaking, I don't mean this to be about politics. I was just saying like that introduced back then a whole type of political behavior on social media that was interesting. Just like reality shows and visible likes and retweets and follower numbers affected the general public. But I think there's a swing away from that now, like a big swing away from that. Not only does it become it's not shocking anymore. It's people become weary of it. It becomes tiresome. It becomes repetitive. Sort of bad behavior. And I think people are really wanting now something real and genuine and loving, frankly, and not in a patronizing way, just like in a real way, because we're all like at our core as humans, we hunger for that, which makes me feel like, we might see a turn to more spirituality now. And it doesn't have to be, I know it doesn't have to be within a religion at all. Religion can be a framework for somebody's journey to having a relationship with God, and whatever name you want to give him. He doesn't give a shit,
Right.
But so long as it's, so long as what you're imagining is someone who knows everything about you, cares about every scintilla of you, will give you, never leave your side, will give you wisdom at all times, and is going to have you is going to guide you to go in particular directions that might be very uncomfortable, but you will see that it is all to have you become more and more and more and more yourself. That's the goal. To have this relationship with God and become, and I'm not talking about religion. If anyone has a bad view of that, it rubs them the wrong way, that word, redefine it for yourself. Or use some other word. Call him Bob. I mean, he just doesn't care. But I think, because listen, when you've got something like, bringing it all the way around, Megyn, when you've got something like AI, generative AI, that is so good at imitating, I'll tell you, the reason it's so good at imitating what we see in our lives is because it's taken everything we've done in our lives up to now and put it in a blender, and then you put in a prompt and you have this Frankenstein spoonful and it spits it out to you. How could it do that? It's not pulling it out of the air. It's pulling all the films that have ever been done, all the series that have ever been done, all the talk shows that have ever been done, the books that have ever been written, and all of this. It's wholesale theft, 100%. But you've got these different applications that reproduce, and we look at it and we think it's real. Or we look at these, the way the media treated the whole COVID thing, the fear mongering, which I think was unforgivable.
Same.
And they'll do it again. It'll be done again. It'll be that kind of fear mongering will happen again because it's happened repeatedly in history. Anyway, you've got all these things that we used to be able to just rely on what our eyes saw. We used to be able to rely on, or we assumed we could rely on what the media was telling us. It seemed more even keeled, right? We're just getting
or the
what,
FBI.
where, why, how, and right? But if you don't have those things, and I don't know if that they'll return, our ability to depend on these things of being real, I don't know that will return. So that being true, then, what are you going to rely on to guide you? Are you going to look around at other people? Are you going to look around at what's trending on social media and go, well, that must be the direction? Are you going to go by a video that you see? Well, I don't know. That could be generative AI. Maybe that's not real. Are you going to go by what the media says? Well, I don't know. What's their agenda? You've got to get some kind of foundation spiritually. However you're going to pull that together. Again, I'm not talking about religion. I'm just saying it's available. And it will give you a sense of, it will give you a true north, is what I'm saying. It'll give you a sense of direction that is not dependent at all on all those other elements I just said, because you cannot trust them. I just encourage people to develop their own discernment, which is inherent, right? Your own discernment and your own instincts. And this is not a right or left. I mean, honestly, I think I'm not into politics at all. I'm into people divesting themselves of their fears, most of them irrational in my experience, so that they can truly become themselves completely. And if you couple that with a relationship, a spiritual relationship, you're going to be so much happier. You're going to have focus in your life. You're going to be able to discern whether or not something is bullshit. Mm-hmm. And everybody needs that now. Going forward,
well, a
you're going to
hefty
need it
dose
more.
of humility is definitely in order for most people. And believing in a higher power is a good reminder of the need to stay humble and how we are. We are humble human beings. We don't have all the answers. That doesn't mean Bob doesn't. All right, stand by. More with Justine right after this. We're going to ask her about those viral videos she did, critiquing some of the meltdowns after Trump won. Have you seen any of these? Because they're very clever. Stand by. Some therapists say that debt can make people feel desperate and helpless. It can ruin your sleep. It can creep into your relationships. It can wreck happiness. But there are ways to get help. Let me tell you about Done with Debt. They have aggressive new strategies to end your debt fast. Done with Debt stands between you and your harassing bill collectors. They tirelessly negotiate to slash balances, eliminate interest, and stop the crushing penalties, all without loans or bankruptcy. Wouldn't it be nice to not have to deal with this alone? Done with Debt has one goal: to wipe out your debt for good. Before you make another payment, consider a visit to donewithdebt.com. Speak with one of their strategists for free and tell them I sent you. But you do need to hurry because some of their debt solutions are time sensitive and you don't want to miss out. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. Don't wait. Shop Cozy Earth right now before their most loved gifts sell out this holiday season. What's your favorite Christmas memory? Maybe curling up by the tree, the glow of the lights filling the room, spending time with a family, feeling completely at peace. Cozy Earth helps you recreate that magic by transforming your home into a sanctuary, a haven of calm amidst life's chaos. Their bamboo sheet set is the ultimate in luxury. Designed to be incredibly breathable, it keeps you several degrees cooler for a night of uninterrupted rest. With a durable weave guaranteed to last 10 years, it's a thoughtful gift everyone can enjoy and use every day. And for those slow, cozy holiday mornings, Cozy Earth's long-sleeve bamboo pajama sets are a must-have. Luxuriously soft and stylish, they're perfect for lounging in total comfort while making lasting memories with loved ones. Want your Cozy Earth gifts by Christmas? Expedited shipping, available through December 20. Wrap up the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. Go to cozyearth.com/Megyn and use my exclusive code MEGYN for up to 40% off. cozyearth.com/MEGYN. Author Justine Bateman is with me. Find out more about her AI-free film festival at Credo, CREDO 23.com. I love that, AI-free. That's ironically going to be the future. The past is the future now because the future's gotten so weird and objectionable in these ways. Let's just spend a minute on your critiques of these videos because it was such a clever way, I thought, to handle the insanity that broke out when Trump won. You approached it very forensically as a filmmaker and just kind of had some issues with the direction and the editorial choices by some of these people having the meltdowns. All right, let's watch one, which is, I think we've got SOT 2, where this is a woman, we think, with a half-shaved head. Let's watch.
Your kids need to hear you discussing trans and queer topics. You will be hearing about trans athletes, and you need to set the record straight on the percentage of trans people in the United States and the percentage of competitive trans athletes. It's super important to stick with the facts. Let's stop the witch hunt on trans people.
So for the listening audience, that woman literally has like a center part and a long head of hair on one side and a shaved head on the other side. Go ahead, Justine, your thoughts on her approach to her messaging.
Oh, that one. Oh, geez, I'd have to bring up my critique to really do it justice. But I think in that critique, I went into Gosh, if somebody could bring it up, that'd be.
I have it here. It was
okay.
Actually
You
amazing.
read it. You read it.
You wrote this piece introduces many questions.
Megan, you should pull up one of the ones that where they were crying and like having a fucking fit. Anyway, but yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Read the half shaved head.
You write, this piece introduces many questions. As part of the I'm shaving my head because I don't like the election outcome movement, this character has gone only halfway, yet no reason is given. The viewer is left wondering, is this a new movement? Does this represent those who are ambivalent about the election outcome? Or is the hairstyle of those who sympathize with both sides? Or someone who changed their mind midway? The setting is refreshingly not in a car, and yet we wonder what is beyond the fence? There's a fence behind her. What is it blocking? Is it blocking an illegally narrow walkway between two houses? Something else? The bright open space above the actress's head also causes the audience to wonder, is this an escape hatch for the main character, for us? The camera is appropriately elevated, but it's unnecessarily unsteady. Tripods can be delivered to you the next day through Amazon. The editing is unfortunate because this is a short piece. All the dialogue can be captured at once. Another take should have been done. Fiend. End. Meaning that is brilliant. So well done. What gave you the idea?
The ones that were right after the election were absolutely. I mean, the level of emotion that was released. It was. My first thought when I looked at them was, man, we've had this crying genre in. Kind of online post for like 6 years. And as a filmmaker, I always wonder, were you crying really hard? I mean, something was really upsetting to you, and not just about the election, but I mean, this is happening prior. You were crying really hard about something that truly upset you. And then the thought entered your head that, oh, I've got to find my phone. Where's my phone? I've got to record this. And then you
put my tears on camera.
I've got to record myself crying. And then you recorded yourself. Maybe you did a couple of takes and then you watched it back and then you edited it. And then you decided that it should be distributed internationally and you posted it online. Or were you wondering what to post next on your social media account? Should it be an unboxing video? Should it be a visit to your doctor's office? What are you going to do to keep the audience there? And you go, I know, I'll do a crying video. And you post it and you set your phone up or your camera and then made yourself cry. It had to have gone one way or the other. And then my second thought was, my God, we are so many years into this creator economy and still the quality looks this shitty. How is that possible? Like, it's never been easier. That's why I mentioned that, the creator economy has created an entire cottage industry on equipment, lighting, tripod stands. I mean, everything.
Yeah. You don't have to live like this, Susan.
There's no
whatever her name was.
So then I thought, well, I'll just tell them, I'll just do a serious film review of these items that have been distributed internationally. Here they are.
I like the ones where you call people out for not producing real tears. It's like, as an actual actress, come on, you're kind of phoning it in.
Some of it is forced. Some of it's forced, and maybe it's the second or third take. And then, the director of this piece should be aware if they're emotionally tiring the actress with too many takes. But it's better to read them. Actually, if people go to my Substack, which is JustineBatemanSubstack.com, there's an index there I've done over 100 of them. So they can go down, you go all the way down to the bottom even and see the first ones. There was one with a woman who was standing next to this man very close, as if her one arm is behind him. And she's looking at him as he's talking and she's nodding her head to camera. And then she's looking back and nodding. And it really looked like she's a ventriloquist. And this is her dummy, the guy standing next to her. So there's a whole piece on that. Anyway, it's satire. Absolutely. It's a great way to comment on, because a lot of times they're saying stuff that's really heinous.
Well, but what's so clever about it is, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to laugh at fools who behave so foolishly, and they're meant to anger you. They're meaning to upset you, to motivate you to cry. And it's the appropriate response to look at a lunatic like that and just laugh a little like, okay, good luck in your influencer career. I've got doubts about how far it's going. Did you get any blowback on that? Like, I know you're towing the line politically and you're not a political person, which I believe, but do you get blowback just by not saying you're for Kamala, you can get blowback in Hollywood?
I don't remember a time in my career where there was an absence of criticism of me. So, or of anybody. I mean, there's nothing unique about me in that sense. I go into detail in my book, Fame, right? We talked about that years ago.
Yep.
You just didn't hear it as often because of the effort it took to write a letter to somebody, back before the internet. So there's always been somebody, at least one person, and I say that sarcastically, like more than one person, who's got a problem with me, is something about my presence pushes their buttons, or they don't like that I haven't done anything to my face, or they, so it doesn't, any quote blowback I would be getting from anything I'm saying now is in the same bin. In other words, it's no different now than it's ever been. So I don't care. And all I'm saying now is I'm glad that mob mentality momentum is over, because the last 8 years, and most acutely last 4 years, were fucking unbearable.
Yeah.
Unbearable. I never want to go through anything like that again in my life. I truly don't. It was the most un-American situation I've ever been in. And I'm 58, I think. I'm 58,
Yeah, totally agree.
To say that people can't ask questions, can't say what they think, can't ask that there be some research on this or that. It was absolutely awful. And it was just like Revenge of the Hall Monitors. It was the fucking Debbie Downers, the party poopers, and one of the things, the social media video critiques that I'm doing, I'm not doing that many anymore because you don't have as many, people getting all crazy about it. But I will do it for subscribers for Christmas presents. If they want a Christmas present for someone, they could send me their moms or their sisters or whatever is, it's a good Christmas present, right? And I'll do a critique for them. That's
amazing.
But there's something about satire, Megyn, that was one of the comedy and satire was one of the first things to take a dive that they squashed. Because when you think about it, if you have satire and comedy in a society, you have balance, because it's like an insect in an area in nature that keeps certain things at bay. And you eliminate that insect and you'll find, oh, here comes some vine that starts choking the trees. Oh, that was the main food source for that insect that you just got rid of. So satire and comedy are like that. They hem in, and there's other things too, of course, but those are two elements that will hem in a society and keep a balance. And you see, those were two of the first things that they got out in order to make this squashing down, this hall monitor bullshit.
The purification.
You had to get rid of comedy.
Yeah. I mean, it really is puritanical. And I do agree. I think it's over. One final thing I'll say, we have to wrap, but you have done a very good job of keeping politics out of your family. Your brother's very famous too, Jason Bateman. By the way, I saw Carry On this past weekend. It was excellent. Very good film. He plays a villain. It's #1 on Netflix right now. But your closing message to people who have not been as successful as you guys about just not making your love relationships about politics and or cultural bullshit.
Well, I think if you're making your relationships with your loved ones and your friends about politics, you're really making it about you. Period. You're wanting them to focus on you. You're wanting them, I call it intimacy through injury. If you have a fight with this person, they're going to be thinking about you. They're going to want to call you and fix it or whatever, because you're too afraid to just have a regular relationship with them where they don't value, you think they don't value you that much. So I think it's
so good.
It's not about the people that are doing that. It's not about politics. I think it's about they're trying to exact emotional terrorism and control on their friends and family. And is just trying to manipulate the relationship, and that's it.
Very insightful. Gosh, you're so right. That can apply to so many other.
It's not even on the list of things. How someone votes is not even on the list of things that I would and would not, want to be around someone because of.
I know, exactly. And too often it's done, I think, to people, at least on my side of the aisle, and not by people on my side of the aisle, but they can be guilty of it as well. Justine, it's such a pleasure to talk to you again. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. And find out more about her film festival, which is free from AI at Credo23, CREDO23.com. Tomorrow, VDH.